You okay, David?
We are all good to go if Richard is good.
I'm good.
All right.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tanya Cantlow, and I am the counsel to the Borough President, Eric Adams. I am also joined by Richard Barrick, who is the Land Use Director, Ina Gusenfeld, who is the Land Use Coordinator, and we would not be able to have this ULURP today if it was not for our Director of Information Technology, David Perez. So thank you all for joining us. Borough President Adams's Uniform Land Use Review Procedure public hearing is being conducted via the video conferencing platform. There are 3 items on the agenda this evening. Please note that this virtual hearing is being recorded to comply with the public law for transparency. It will be available for viewing on Borough President Adams's One Brooklyn channel on YouTube. Viewers may join the hearing via the link and password following slide and request to testify via the WebEx chat function. Viewers may also submit comments to Ask Eric at brooklynbp.nyc.gov for Borough President Adams's consideration. Please call the first item and let us begin. Richard, you're on mute.
Sorry. Calendar item 180496 ZMK 180497 ZRK.
This application submitted by 1620 Realty Corp. Pursuant to Section 97-C and 201 of the New York City Charter for map amendment to the change of the south side of Cordeloo Road between East 15th and East 16th Street from R6A 62-4 to R7D 62-4, and a zoning text amendment to designate the rezoning area a mandatory inclusionary housing area. Such actions are requested to facilitate a 9-story, 82,960 square foot mixed-use development with 85 dwelling units and 9,500 square feet of commercial space. Intended for a 6,500 square foot supermarket and local retail in Brooklyn Community District 14. The building cellar would contain 44 accessory parking spaces, accessible via a ramp on East 16th Street. Community Board 14 voted to approve this application with conditions on November 9th, 2020. We remind viewers that if you wish to testify, you must use the WebEx chat function to indicate your intent to speak. After the presentation and question and answer portion, we will call the speakers in order of chat request. Would Richard Lobel, the representative for this application, please state your name for the record and present the application.
Richard Lobel of Sheldon Lobel PC for the applicant. Good evening.
Good evening.
I understand that the Borough President's office is able to post the on the screen the packet. Excellent. So thank you, Ms. Cantlow and Mr. Barrett. So here we've got the 1620 Cortelyou Road rezoning. And this is a rezoning which came before Community Board 14 over the last several weeks, and as was stated, was most recently approved yesterday. While I don't have the official resolutions, I understand it was by a vote of 24 in favor with 4 opposed. So it was very strongly supported by the Community Board, and we feel that the reason for that is because it offers such obvious benefits to the local area. So next slide. So one thing to note from the zoning map, which is on the screen right now, is that the zoning of the property is currently primarily R6A with a commercial overlay. And at the rear of the property, a small portion is located within an R7A. And so within the last several years, there are many rezonings which were effectuated in the area, which resulted in R7A in certain areas and along certain corridors. The R7A district would permit a height of 95 feet. So this is already adjacent to the property. It's a rather robust zoning district with an FAR of 4.6. You can also note that the corridor itself on Cortelyou has a commercial overlay itself, allowing for commercial uses as a very strong commercial thoroughfare in the local area. Next slide. So you can see here what would be proposed pursuant to the rezoning. It would be rezoning this frontage along Cortelyou between East 16th and East 17th with an R7D with a C24 overlay, which would accomplish several goals. The first would be to ensure commercial use on the ground floor of the property. This is very important as commercial uses in this area abound on Cortelyou. It is appropriate, particularly for commercial uses, given the fact that there's already a strong commercial character to this wide street. In addition, the R7D would allow for redevelopment, which would allow for, as was mentioned, an 85-unit building. Importantly, because of the 2016 amendments to the zoning resolution in zoning for quality and affordability, this would result in, pursuant to mandatory inclusionary housing, roughly 21 units, which would be mandatory affordable units and would remain so for the life of the project. Next slide. So you can see here we have a land use map. And as you would expect, there's residential uses which abound in the R3X to the north of lower density and more intense residential uses that abound to the south. You can see existing 5, 6, and 7-story buildings, both immediately to the south of the property as well as to the east of the property. While the property could currently be redeveloped with a mixed-use residential and commercial building, that building would not carry with it any affordability requirement. And so the relatively minor uptick in height that would be permitted pursuant to the R7D would require 25% at a minimum of the units be devoted to affordable housing. You can also see, as was discussed, that you've got an 80-foot wide street in Cortelyou, which generally speaking in most areas of Brooklyn has merited upzonings in with regards to similar districts, R7A, R7D, and even R8A in certain cases. So city planning typically will look at the intensity of the use and balance that out with the street width, access to the site, as well as public transportation. Here, there's many positives to this particular site. You got frontages for this particular site on both Cortelyou as well as East 16th Street and East 17th on the other side of the block. So it seems particularly well suited for the proposed rezoning. Next slide. This is merely a picture of the zoning change map, which contains the change which would be effectuated by the rezoning. And so you can see prior to the rezoning, you've got an R6A with a commercial overlay, and afterwards an R7D with a commercial overlay. Again, the property is currently zoned R6A with a small portion within the R7A. Next slide. So here you've got the plans for the project. These are illustrative plans only. We note that the community board made certain comments with regards to the design of the building. We're currently talking to the project architect and making modifications to reflect some of these proposed design changes. But basically, even though illustrative, this will give you some idea of what could be built under the proposal. You can see the rendering showing ground floor commercial uses with residential above. Importantly, the ground floor commercial use contains Cortelyou Market, the current Key Food, which is owned and operated by Tony Dole, who is on the call with us. Tony, importantly, wants to maintain the commercial supermarket here. He's owned and operated this market for over 25 years. This is an important part of the surrounding community. And at the land use committee hearing, many residents spoke of the fact that this is important to the area in having low cost food, produce, fresh food available to the local area. So the one of the benefits of the rezoning is to be able to ensure that this would not merely be developed as a market rate building, which could be done under the current zoning, but would continue the operation of the supermarket with residential and affordable units above. Next slide. This slide merely shows, and we'll go through these in short order. I would add that Victor Folletti, the project architect, is on the presentation with us and is here today, who can answer any specific architectural questions. But you can see the existing building being a one-story brick building with three-story mixed-use brick buildings to the north and east of the property. Next slide. And these are the zoning calculations. Understandably, they're very small, but they basically demonstrate the zoning calculations as would exist with the proposal. This would be as of right in accordance with R70 zoning district. An R70 zoning district would contain, the market on the ground floor with residential uses above, as well as a ramp down to parking in the cellar. Next slide. So here you can see a site plan. This has the new 9-story mixed-use building in the area of the current market. There's lower second floor roofs to the rear of the property, allowing for a step down in the height, demonstrating the typical layouts and apartment numbers, as well as square footages for the bedrooms per floor. The next slide, you can forward to that, Dan. As you can see the first floor plan showing the ramp down, as well as the market and commercial uses on the ground floor on Cortelyou. Next slide. So this is the typical 2nd through 8th story plans. This has an assortment of apartments, and we can talk about at some point to the extent that the Borough President's office wants to discuss unit mixes, we can discuss those. This is a range of studios, 1s and 2 bedrooms, which generally range from 587 square feet at the smallest bedroom to roughly 1,200 square feet at the larger bedrooms. There's actually one 492 square foot studio. So it's a range of apartments and units for a range of income. Next slide. And then this is merely the reduced 9th story with fewer apartments, I think roughly 8 apartments. I would just add that the next 2 slides have the section of the building. So you can see the unit breakdown and the height and setback. You can see the maximum building height of 102 feet with a setback on the 9th story, 10-foot setback along the street, as well as a 15-foot setback along the side street. And finally, next slide. And then this is merely a very basic rendering demonstrating the market on the ground floor with residential units above, topped by dormers on the top story. So essentially, this is the nature of the project. There was a robust conversation at the community board. There was a discussion of what the project would bring to the local area. There was a discussion of the fact that the affordable units were important to the area. There was a discussion of the commercial uses that were important as well as the maintenance of this current market, which we intend to allow to remain open during the pendency of the application and perhaps even moving forward. And so with that, I would basically say that the applicant team is happy to answer any questions on behalf of the Brooklyn Borough President, and at their discretion, anyone else who has any questions.
Thank you, Richard, for the presentation. So yeah, I have several questions. And the first question, community members have expressed a concern about the proposed development would bring inappropriate height and density to this part of the neighborhood. So if you can elaborate as to why the applicant elected to pursue a rezoning to a R7D rather than a lower density district, such as an existing adjacent R7A.
Sure. So I think this has been something which has been discussed fairly thoroughly, and I think it's been important to Tony throughout the entirety of the process to allow for this development in this particular package and this project. So again, in all frankness, Tony's had, there have been offers to purchase the property, which would result in a market rate building and no food store moving forward. And in some sense, we feel that the proof is in the pudding. This is somebody who has been a valued community member for over 25 years and is really, we think, has gone above and beyond in attempting to, to really keep a local business open that hires locally, has 30 employees from the surrounding area and beyond. And so an R7A district, where part of the property already lies within an R7A district, simply wouldn't allow for the bulk that would provide for a combination of maintenance of the existing commercial supermarket, residential units, and importantly, affordable units. So an R7A over the existing R6A would only offer a 4.6 FAR. This would result in, with affordability, would result in FARs which would be similar to the existing FAR in terms of what he could currently build in terms of market rates. So given the fact that there is a program that is intended for this site, and importantly, given the fact that the R7A right now allows for 95 feet, and the R7D moving forward would allow for 102 feet, the argument that was made to the community board, which was eventually deemed to be successful and supported, was that a mere 7 feet in height differential would enable a program here which would create a significant number of affordable units in the area and allow for a store that is valued in the local community, particularly in those who may not be able to afford more expensive supermarkets. So that's really the reason for the R7D. It's that given the wide street condition, and particularly given the fact that there was already prevalent R7A as well as R7A building types here, the marginal difference with an R7D was just seen to be a very attractive combination.
Thank you. I know in your presentation you touched a little bit on the income range, but if you can sort of go into detail, give us, more of a breakdown in terms of the distribution by bedroom size and household size and anticipated rent and so forth.
Sure. So the building offers a nice unit mix. There's only 7 studios that are offered, 52 one-bedrooms and 26 two-bedrooms. So it's leaning towards 1-bedrooms and 2-bedrooms, larger units. And the applicant has already discussed with and agreed to utilize option 1, which would be 60% AMI. So for family sizes ranging from 1 to 4, let's say, for some of the 2-bedroom units, that would result on average of AMIs ranging from 55,720. That's 55. I'm sorry, I apologize. 47,760 through 68,220. Importantly, one thing to note with regards to AMI is that these AMIs represent the AMIs for families. So for a 68,220 AMI, that would be for a family of 4. So presumably, two earners within the household. The anticipated rents would average again with that 60% AMI, which would be for studios $909, $909, 1-bedrooms $1,143, and 2-bedrooms $1,366. These are from publicly available information on AMIs, with the understanding, of course, that rents would be as low as $567 for studios, $717 for 1-bedrooms, and $854 for 2-bedrooms. This would represent the 10% of the units that are anticipated at 40% AMI. So we further note, and I think it's important to note that, number one, the inclusionary units would, of course, be affordable for the life of the building. This is a requirement pursuant to zoning and pursuant to the HPD regulatory agreement. And also that the 40% AMI, which is a required portion of the range, represents real affordability for the surrounding area.
So the next question deals with marketing strategies. What marketing strategies would be used in the tenant selection process in order to ensure the highest level of participation from Community District 14? And also, would it start with a financial literacy campaign to assist those becoming lottery eligible?
So this was an important point of the community board. And the community board, to its credit, had a number of conditions which we've already reviewed and have responded to a number of those. And some of those revolved around tenant selection and financial literacy. There was some question to the community board about local community board preference, and as is consistent with other rezonings and with affordable housing in general, there would be a 50% preference for Community Board 14 residents. So the applicant has already begun discussions with regards to tenant selection and financial literacy. and specifically based upon, in part, the community board's recommendation, we've already had conversations with Canva, who is a known and respected local operator and conducts financial literacy as part and parcel of many of their projects. And so we've already discussed with them the possibility of operating in terms of tenant selection and, importantly, financial literacy in order to maximize the Community Board 14 participation here. So, while we can't yet discuss specifics of the marketing strategy, we do know that we've spoken to some potential partners in the form of Canva and look forward to making sure that the CD14 units are filled.
So the next question, what mechanism guarantees that the supermarket would be provided within the development is represented? And what guarantees that the new store would be consistent with the pricing and merchandising of the existing operation?
So I think the first thing is that one of the things we would note is the history of operations of the supermarket. And so it's kind of important to us that while we do come in with many applicants who are new to a neighborhood and buy property, and as is their right, potentially rezone properties, that's not this. And this is really an owner in Tony who has really been in the neighborhood for so long, and you can speak to people in the neighborhood, has really attempted to maintain consistent pricing and to allow for really robust pricing in order to allow local residents to have affordable food. So the applicant right now is committed to having the key food return. I think the idea for him has always been that if he was not interested in having the supermarket there, he really a long time ago would have abandoned the project and really had sold the property. So that's really not in the cards for him. We're working with the architect right now, moreover, to ensure that the supermarket is able to remain open during construction. We're discussing some phasing plans which would allow for the phasing of construction and allow for portions of the supermarket to remain open. And in truth, the idea is that the supermarket would not be open in its current form, but would actually return in a larger form with additional, I think, 1,500 square feet at a minimum in the proposed supermarket going forward. So, that's really kind of our answer as far as what we intend to do. And Tony's committed to having the supermarket at this site.
So the next question actually deals with, in terms of has there been any consideration to set aside like a portion of the commercial ground floor for, arts, cultural institution or locally based retailer?
There has been, I think that it would be in terms of a local retail use. The idea, as Tony has discussed with me, is that he'd like to have local business which would complement the supermarket at the site, much like there is right now. But I think that when talking to Tony about this, he discussed maintaining local retail at the site. It's not a tremendous square footage. There's only 9,500 square feet in total in the commercial use going forward. But having said that, much like there is now, we'd like to have a local retail use in the remaining space.
Richard, did you have anything? Barrett? Oh, okay. So the next question, actually, the borough president is, of course, very interested in making sure that his policy is for, promoting the use of sustainable and renewable energy. So can you talk a little bit about, what consideration has been given to incorporate, blue, green, and white roof gardens, DEP rain gardens, and promoting a rain storm water runoff?
So, we are in preliminary process right now, especially given the fact that we're in ULURP and things are not guaranteed. And we understand that. We don't take that for granted. The communication with the community board is that we will provide solar panels on the roof. That's something that Tony's committed to and is happy to move forward on. With regards to other sustainability measures, I know that Victor Folletti is on right now. Without trying to belabor this, I understand that the implementation of the 2020 Energy Code is rather robust. And so there are a number of measures which will be part and parcel of any construction going forward. But importantly here, the two measures that we specifically discussed internally were including a green roof, which I think is something which is feasible, and perhaps stormwater management. That's something which is being looked at for the building, but I can't really commit to that at this point. But I will tell you that it's something we've talked about.
And the final question deals with promoting good quality jobs for Brooklynites. So if you can outline what steps have been taken to ensure the inclusion and participation of minority and women-owned business enterprises and local business enterprises in the process of construction on this site.
I also talked to Tony about this, and admittedly, this is again while we're very early on. Tony is committed to allowing the process to take place and to bid out jobs for local hiring as well as MWBE. I understand that to the extent that 421A relief is sought for the site or new 421A, that certain MWBE practices will be adopted as part and parcel of that process. Having said that, I think one of the most important things about the project moving forward with regards to local hiring is not merely with regards to construction, but also with regards to local hiring for the subsequent business at the site. Tony employs 30 people at the site. My understanding is that all or nearly all of them are Brooklyn residents. And so we think that this is kind of an important part of this application process, that not only are there currently 30 employees, but also there would potentially be additional employees that would be picked up as the building grew and as importantly as the supermarket at the site grew. So again, I think that with regards to MWBE, we're happy to instruct our contractors and subcontractors to engage in that hiring. But importantly, I think with regards to local hiring, again, we like to say the proof is in the pudding, and Tony is admittedly a very significant local hirer with regards to not just construction jobs, but to real jobs going forward that will that sustain local Brooklyn individuals.
Thank you, Richard. That concludes the questions from our office.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell.
Sure, you're welcome. Okay, so we're going to take Ina, do you have a list of people who want to testify?
I can start calling individuals based on the order in which they indicated intent to speak.
Okay.
One moment. The first speaker is Yvette Kaze or Kaze, C-A-Z-E.
Can she, you'd have to unmute yourself?
It looks like she's unmuted herself. Yes.
Miss Yvette Case? Would you like to testify? We can't hear you. Miss Case? I think, Ina, if you can maybe go to someone else and maybe we can try to get her back.
Our next speaker, I believe, is Elena Reinholtz.
Mr. Reinholz, you need to unmute. Okay, I think she's unmuted.
Is it working?
Yes, we're ready for you.
Hey, thank you. So hi, I'm Ilana. I'm here as representative of the community for all the people who can't join tonight, for all the elderly in my building who won't be able to use the supermarket, all the people who are working, who are taking care of children. I'm getting a lot of feedback. I'd like to talk about how I spoke with 100 people offline. Still getting feedback. I think it's from Yvette. She's muted. So it's better now. So I'm here because I talked to 100 people over the last week, offline and online, and this isn't controversial at all. This is a project where the negatives outweigh the positives, because I've seen other projects that have come to this neighborhood, and an example of something that I wish Richard and Tony brought was what 1921 Cortelyou brought, which was affordable housing, real affordable housing for 30% AMI, not 60% AMI, which is $60,000. That is just median income. That is not affordable housing. We need affordable housing here. Secondly, there's no climate resilience at all. This is going to be built in 2021 to 2022. The plan presented is despicable and disrespects the community. And I'd say that the project that we can look at in terms of affordability, 1921 Cortelyou, is about what the community needs. So, let me see. I'd like to add, I'm catching up on Richard's talking points. And it looks like everything that I'm hearing is coming out of a different side of his mouth after the last meeting. The last meeting, I would like to clarify, is that solar panels were maybe a possibility and could be roughed in, but we cannot guarantee it. Today, he says, I've spoken to Tony, and we will be moving forward with it. So maybe things changed. You know, I'd love to hear more from that later, not right now. Secondly, stormwater management, affordability, and food access are serious problems. And I think I'll just end with, I am in opposition to this project because we do not want affordable units tucked into luxury housing. We want affordable housing tucked into the building that he's already building. This is against the upzoning. My statement is not against the entire building, but I am here to reflect the community, and the community does not want this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you. May I call the next speaker? Okay, our next speaker, I believe, is Tamara Kowal.
Ms. Clark, you're unmuted. You can proceed.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Ina. Thank you, David. Thank you, Richard B. and Richard L. And certainly all the participants. It's great that we're able to have this discourse. I am totally opposed to the upzoning, and more importantly, I'm opposed to getting rid of the key food that's been a kind of a bastion of just normal food costs in the neighborhood. Like Richard kept alluding to, it's low cost food. It's not. It's affordable food. It's for like people who can't necessarily go to the food co-op, which is a lovely place to be sure. And I go there when I splurge, but it's not affordable to people in the community. And also, like I've grown to know the people that work there as cashiers, as stockists, and everything. And I used to live in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. I moved into Williamsburg in 1997, first to Bushwick and then to Williamsburg proper. And I've seen how these buildings just go up and they wreck these communities. And they don't give affordable housing at all. They basically gentrify the neighborhood and get rid of the small ma and pa shops that make this beautiful neighborhood. I mean, Dimmons Park, I think we were written up at some point in the New York Times for being one of the most diverse neighborhoods in the United States. And the fact that we're going to be building these big giant buildings and getting rid of the vibrancy, which is Dittmas Park, is just, it's just a sad testament. And I don't think it has to be that way. And just on a side note, just looking at the rendering, that building like fell off the ugly tree. I just went to see the Oculus in downtown Manhattan, and there must be a better way to, if you're going to build buildings, to design them, first of all, to be affordable, but to design them in such a way that they offer beauty to the community, and not like just another big square building that just drowns out sunshine and light and just creates, I don't know, it just creates more parking problems, creates traffic, and just gets rid of pieces of the community. And this neighborhood is too vibrant to allow that to happen. And that's all I have to say about that. Thanks again, all of you.
Okay, moving on to our next speaker, Megan DeMarcus.
Okay. Have you unmuted me? Am I unmuted? You can hear me. Okay. I can no longer hear you, but I'm glad you can hear me. I am the parent coordinator at PS 139, which is the large Title I school on Cortelyou Road. We serve anywhere between 850 and 1,000 students, depending on the year. A Title I school means we serve the majority of our students are living in poverty and are entitled to a free or reduced price lunch. It's a free lunch at this point. So I've been there this is my 4th year as the parent coordinator, my 15th year living in the community. I live on East 18th Street. I go to Key Food almost every single day. We also use the laundromat, which is a part of that block. And I saw in the chat that the people who work at the laundromat didn't have any idea that this was going on tonight. I will tell you that for the past 4 years, I've attended Community Board 14 meetings where this project has been on the docket in different ways to hear public testimony, and there have been lines out the door to express opposition. So I'm very confused how it's reached this point. Right before the pandemic, we were asked to host a community information session. I don't know how to turn my camera on. We were asked to host a community information session at PS 139 since it's located in the heart of the community, and Eric Adams was supposed to attend. Obviously, a pandemic hit that didn't happen. It feels a little bit like things have been rushed through CB 14 and possibly through Eric Adams' office so that this development can get underway, taking advantage of pandemic times when people can't meet in person. So I'm incredibly disappointed with my Community Board 14 office. I'm incredibly disappointed in the Borough President. There is much testimony on the record already from residents that there's severe opposition to this project. It does not reflect the socioeconomic diversity of our community. It does not reflect the cultural diversity of our community. It certainly doesn't reflect the artistic culture of our community. And we don't have the infrastructure to support a 44-car garage and 9 stories of luxury housing. As I said, our large Title I school supports families in poverty. Our community is very close-knit, and we will not stand for this. There's severe opposition across the neighborhood. It has been documented over time. The fact that this is pushed through to this point makes me extremely suspicious as to how that happened. So I think we need to ask questions about if the word is due process and legality with this process so far. One last point. Many of the children and families in our community suffer from asthma. Large-scale developments such as this can severely impact asthma and respiratory issues. We're all concerned with respiratory issues at this point. A project such as this would certainly have an impact on public health. Not to mention the fact that drainage and sewage within our community have big problems. If you've ever tried to cross the street on a rainy day on Cortelliu Road, you know that this is an issue with just the level of residents that we have here already. This project is extremely ill-conceived, and it's for financial gain only. It is not something that enriches our community or will support the people who live here. That's the end of my public comment.
Thank you.
I'm now going to call our next speaker, Simon Ying.
Hello. I would just like to start off that I'm really opposed to this upzoning. Right now, I'm a resident of East 17th Street, and I see a lot of issues with this problem, and I just don't understand why upzoning is needed. I think a lot of the goals can be met with their current.
They did at the community board meeting.
I get some feedback. But,
I mean, you know
I think someone else is speaking as well.
Yeah, hold on one second. Can we mute Berkeley? Okay, Mr. Ying, you can proceed.
Thank you. I lost my train of thought, but I think many of the goals that can be met can be done without the upzoning. If they're worried about affordable housing, they can do that now. There's no need to do market housing. They can just do it if that's one of their goals. And I just see that the increase is just doesn't fit with the community. There's a few things, like one, I commute to work, before COVID, I commute to work every day in the train station, and it's already, it's a narrow train station, and it's already crowded for the current occupants. So increasing that amount, I think, is extremely irresponsible. It's gonna create a lot of congestion. The cars are almost at capacity. There's not enough parking spots. So adding more to that will add to the congestion and load. And then I think also like things like the foot traffic, that's a wide street. That's an area where a lot of children and kids play. I recently just have a son, and my intention is to be able to play on that block with other children, and having that construction will completely hamper that. And I think with a lot of other families in the neighborhood, other things that I think need to be considered is the fact that it is going to be a hardship on the community during the years that they're building. As other people mentioned, Key Food is a primary supermarket. So having no access to that for the 2 years it takes to build it is a disservice to the community. And there's a few other points, but I think Megan hit a lot of the bulk of it. So I agree with absolutely everything she has said. And again, I want to reiterate, I'm completely opposed to the upzoning. It's the end of my testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Ying.
Our next speaker is Aaron Lutz-Kenoy.
Please unmute. Lutz. Aaron Lutz Kenoy, excuse me. Okay. Ina, let's go to the next person.
Okay, so we'll come back to Aaron Lutz Kenoy if possible. Our next speaker is Miyabi Chatterjee.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Okay, thank you so much. I want to thank everybody for this meeting, and I would like to ask the question, exactly what is preventing the owner from building to the current limit and including affordable units? I have not heard any arguments for why the property owner cannot do a project within the current limits. If it's just a question of the level of profitability, then I don't see why that's our problem, and I don't think that we should rezone in order to help one property owner make enough profit. That is my question, and I would love to hear an answer. Thank you so much.
So there's no question and answer. We're just taking public comment.
So,
Okay.
thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, if we're ready to move to our next speaker, that is Claire Bruton.
Hi, this is George Paul. But we just want to let you know that we feel, while we support Key Food and we're happy for Tony, we just don't feel that this sort of billing needs to be made right here. It'll be too many people, too congested. And then, similar to what other people said before, this has happened in Williamsburg and other places, and you can see how the neighborhood has changed. And not only for gentrification purposes, but in terms of actually just pushing original residents out. So there may be some affordable housing, but in the long run, it actually changes the dynamic of the community. And really concerned about this. And not only with the 44 parking spots are nice, but it's going to be more than that when it comes to how people will drive and use it. And we're really concerned. We're really concerned how it changes the feeling of the neighborhood. And it's going to be an eyesore at first, and then other people will say, oh no, we should be able to build just as high. And then as everything seems to grow, it becomes more and more congested, and the schools won't be able to handle this, and some of the other public utilities won't be able to handle all this stuff. No, this is things that I'm concerned with, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Estelle Santis.
Muted, if you can proceed, please. Estelle? Estelle Tasantes, please proceed.
Tribute to victims of the coronavirus pandemic. Donna Mitchell of California was 71 years old. She was a talented...
Okay, Ina, if you can go to the next person, please.
All right. Our next speaker is Trizan Fong.
Great-grandfather who had so much left to give. May they rest in peace, and may their memories be a blessing. Thanks very much for watching. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @LoFlitzer. Tweet the show at CNN Sit Room. Aaron Burnett starts.
I don't see anyone, Ina. I don't see that person.
All right. In that case, we will move on to Tama Roberts.
Roberts?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, but
Oh,
Anna, can someone, there are a few people who are unmuted still. Estelle, if we can mute her to allow Miss Roberts to speak?
hi. Can
Oh,
you see me?
yes, yes.
Okay. I just I was actually approached on Cortellu when I was going to Cafe Madeline, about this project. I hadn't heard about it as I unfortunately have not been as dialed in as I would like to be. But when I heard about this project, I found it really disappointing. Um, I understand development and it's important, obviously, but it seems excessive to build this kind of space. Agreeing with a lot of previous people, affordable housing kind of is the key in this neighborhood, to keep the character of the neighborhood. If you've been on Cortellu, it's, a cozy street, it's unpretentious. There's a lot of community business and it's really community oriented. And I think bringing in luxury housing erases that. I've seen it happen, where my siblings live up in Astoria, and, it really changes the neighborhood. And I think regardless of what the developer says about, oh, they'll keep this, they'll keep that, if there's no actual guarantees baked into that, there's absolutely nothing holding someone to, oh, they're a community member, they'll make sure this happens. So, I just find it really concerning, especially since it seems, a lot of people are against this. And, personally, I would like to hear from some of the long-term residents of the neighborhood. I've only lived here for, a little over 4 years. And one of the reasons I moved here is because it's, it's affordable. It's really community based. I really love it here. So, I don't know. I'd hate to see that character, change. And, I do use Key Food, but, what else is going to happen there? I also use the laundromat on the corner. My roommates use that laundromat. We all go to Key Food. So, it's really concerning to think that there would be a lot of construction there for a long time and displace those, valued businesses. And, on top of that, as everyone else has said, there's concerns with the environmental impact, crowding in the area. So that's kind of my point. It just seems, especially right now, just an odd thing to push through, without, giving back. And, based on this, I plan to personally attend, and try to pay attention to more of these happenings. But it just seems like a really bad call here, for what the neighborhood actually wants. Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Meredith Sherman.
It doesn't look like she's fully connected.
Okay, would you like me to call the next speaker?
Please, and we still have other people who are unmuted that are, I hear a lot of background noise.
Okay, our next speaker is Nate Sabat.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, my name is Nate Sabat. I'm also a new resident of Fitness Park. I've only been here for a year, but I live in a house that of a longtime owner. And I was walking on Cortellu this weekend and heard about this project. I'm vehemently opposed to the idea of upzoning. I can already tell that this is one of the greatest neighborhoods in New York because of its kind of small, tight-knit community feel. And yeah, I believe that this project could accomplish affordable housing with the current zoning laws. I don't see why it needs to be upzoned. I would also love to hear from older residents of the community. I just heard about this and pretty outraged. So thank you so much.
Our next speaker is Jill Beadle.
People are having trouble unmuting. If you can hear me, people are having trouble unmuting. Please check the chat. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jill Beadle. I am a longtime resident of the area. I'm filled with so many emotions, one of which is anger and a lot of disappointment. I want to say first, I am vehemently opposed to the upzoning. There is absolutely no reason this building needs to be that high. There is a specific character and fabric of this neighborhood, and having that building so high would ruin it. There are many other buildings that would block sunlight. There's one building on East 17th Street that is looking for a solar project. It would block that. There's absolutely no reason to have it. I'm very concerned that the communication around this building has not been shared with the community at large. It is very hard to find this information. I found it by accident. Someone else I talked to finds it by accident. If I just feel as though listening to you all on the phone, it doesn't feel as though you're listening to the community. We are the community. We live here. We are invested in our schools and our infrastructure, which by the way is crumbling. We do not have what it takes to support a very, very large building. I have been here for well over 10 years and I have seen gentrification and a lot of progress, and a lot of things that have happened have been great, but they've been done within the character of the neighborhood. You know, I feel like there's some red flags when I hear, I don't know how to pronounce your last name, Richard Lobel, when he was presenting, he kept trying to praise the owner as if the fact that he should somehow get some special benefits because he cares about the neighborhood. So somehow there's some sort of special concessions that we're going to give him for building the building that he wants. That's absolutely unacceptable. It is the community first, and you need to think about the schools that are already overcrowded. PS 889 was created on Coney Island Avenue to be an overflow school for District 22, and they still can't accommodate what's happening around for 2S17, 245, all of these different schools in 139. The woman who spoke from 139 as a parent coordinator hit most of the nail on the head, but I think what I just want to sort of really get across and really help you understand is the community is not happy. We don't think you're listening to us. And if you're not listening to us, then I think that we are going to have to maybe mobilize more so, because with Eric Adams, I know he wants to run for mayor. He's not listening to this small constituency. What's going to happen when it gets bigger? We already have buildings that were built in Cortelyou and Ocean. We have something that was built in Cortelyou and Stratford, which is near Coney Island Avenue. We don't need another large building. It is not going to serve the community. It is about a half a block away from the train station. It cannot support very many more people at all. Those platforms are so small one way, it's very dangerous. Someone recently, about a month or two ago, was killed. They were just on that train station, on this train station tracks. And I'm so overcome with emotion that I didn't know I was going to feel before I had to speak, that I just don't feel like anyone is listening. I've heard people say over and over again that it's been recorded, it's been noted that people are against this. And when I heard Richard Lobel present, all I heard was him talk about it's so beneficial. It's so wonderful. No, it's not. Many of the points he hit upon are not beneficial according to the folks who live in this community. He doesn't live in this community, perhaps, so maybe he doesn't see it, but we live in this community and we don't want the upzoning in the building. We need to be heard. You need to listen to what we are saying. We also know what happens on a day-to-day basis because we live it every day. There also, which some people have mentioned, but it's to be said, if there's not going to be a laundromat still there, you are taking away a big necessity from folks, especially from those who do not have the ability to travel to another laundromat. So there's many, many issues at play. I am strongly opposed. I represent a lot of people who live in my building who are also strongly opposed, and we're not able to attend this meeting. Again, the upzoning is one of the biggest problems. And of course, it absolutely needs to have truly affordable housing. And it goes without saying, yes, Key Food is not an inexpensive or discount grocery store. The prices have gone up since this area has gentrified. It just happens to be cheaper than what we have. It's not as expensive as a Whole Foods, but it certainly isn't low cost. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Jen Berkeley.
Hello? Is it working?
We can hear you.
Okay.
Are you unmuted?
Yeah, can you hear me? Good evening. My name is Jen Berkeley. I've lived in the neighborhood for close to 10 years at 422 East 17th Street, directly around the corner from 1620 Cortelliu. I'm here tonight to present my own views on the proposed rezoning, as well as the perspective of members of the 416 and 422 East 17th Street Tenant Association. I also worked as a tenant organizer and affordable housing advocate for more than 10 years and now work in affordable housing preservation at HUD. So I'm well aware of the need for affordable housing in our neighborhood. I understand that the petitioner, who currently owns and operates the Cortelliu Road Seafood Market, sees this proposed development as an opportunity to utilize his property to the fullest extent possible and enjoy the substantial financial opportunity this project presents. Unfortunately, the parameters of MIH, mandatory inclusionary housing, while short of providing actual affordable apartments for those with incomes more aligned with many of the individuals and families who live in the surrounding apartment buildings. Many of CB14's remaining rent-stabilized housing units are in this area, roughly between the blocks of East 16th and the CB's eastern border, and between Dorchester Road and Church Avenue. Our neighborhood has been hit hard by the devastating economic impact of COVID, with many residents fearing what happens when evictions resume in January. I mention this because I am concerned that the addition of more expensive housing will increase displacement pressures in the neighborhood, as well as the potential for displacement of longtime businesses that serve the community. In the interest of time, I will summarize my other concerns, some of which may already be under consideration. I am opposed to the current design of the building as well as the proposed height. Developer needs to build within current zoning regulations. The building needs to be redesigned with the character of the neighborhood in mind so as to not create a massive eyesore in the neighborhood. Traffic issues need to be addressed on Cortelliu to prevent the backup that occurs when delivery trucks are parked at the site. Street parking is already sparse in the area after 7 p.m. There cannot be more cars parked on our streets at night. There needs to be consideration for increasing the size of the sidewalk along the property line, as well as adding streetscape, improving the condition of the sidewalk, and preventing the backup of water that occurs during rainstorms. An agreement to make other infrastructure improvements on Cortelliu Road needs to be finalized before any development can proceed. Anyone who is familiar with ULURP procedures across the city, this is usually something that takes place between the developer and the community. We also really need improvements made to the size of the subway platforms and overall condition of the subway station, which, while normally in the hands of the MTA, developers across the city are taking it upon themselves to do improvements to subway stations when their buildings are so close to those locations. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. The end.
Our next speaker is Anthony Finkel.
And while we're waiting for the next speaker, since few people have spoken to us about flooding tonight, if there are explicit catch basins where you're seeing ponding, you could certainly notify the office of the exact location and we could investigate it further for you. Thank you.
Hello, can everybody hear me?
We can hear
Yes,
you.
we hear you.
Can hear me? Okay, one second. I'm just pulling over. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Office of the Brooklyn Borough President and the ULURP Board for allowing me to speak. My name is Anthony J. Finkel. I have been a resident of Ditmas Park for over 30 years, and I operate a small business in this community. I also serve on the board of directors for the Cortelliu Road Merchants Association. Although this is not their endorsement, I'm just letting you know how my affiliation and how I know Mr. Tony. Tonight, I'm voicing my support for Mr. Dola and the upzoning of 1620 Cortelliu Road. Mr. Tony and his family have owned the Key Food located at 1620 Cortellier Road for almost 30 years and has been an active member of the Merchants Association and the community for over a decade, both financially and physically. After speaking with Mr. Tony and hearing about the project's plans last night at Community Board 14's general meeting, I feel confident that upzoning 1620 Cortellier Road will benefit the community in a number of ways. One, upzoning 1620 Cortellier Road will add at least 20 new affordable housing units along Cortellier Road corridor. Two, approving the upzoning will ensure that 1620 Cortellier will remain in the hands of someone who has already been investing in the community for the past 30 years, rather than transferring it over to a private developer that will not care. Three, the new apartment units will benefit young families by providing them with the opportunity to move into the area instead of pushing young families away who may not be able to afford the purchase of $1 million Victorian home. Four, the new apartment building and its inhabitants will increase business activity at local shops, restaurants, and bars in the area. This increased business activity is good for Cortellier Road and for Ditmas Park. Finally, I believe that Mr. Tony has proven that he is receptive to the community's needs and wants. Mr. Tony has demonstrated this by adding these 20 plus affordable housing units while performing the construction in phases that will keep the supermarket open and available to the public. Mr. Tony did not have to go about construction in this way. In fact, as it stands now, he could build an 80-foot high structure without any affordable housing units and without any community input at all. But he chose to go through a different route that provides the community with a benefit, which is one of the many reasons why I support Mr. Tony and the upzoning of 1620 Cortellier Road. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Finkel. Can we go back to, hold on one second. Estelle, I know we tried to get you. DeSantis, following Estelle, Timothy Sudweeks. Estelle, is she here?
She's not on anymore.
Okay, is Timothy available? Let me see. Timothy Sudweeks? Okay, if you can unmute yourself.
Unmute.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Please.
Okay, good. This is Timothy Sudweeks. I'm the president of the board of 400 East 17th Street. And I'm against the upzoning at 1620 Cortellier Road. We feel that not all the information is being shown to the community board, and quite frankly, during a pandemic, a lot of people aren't being, they're not fully engaged, and I think that the process has become a little bit unfair. As an example, I'm an architect, and I cannot see how you can be digging below a supermarket and building above at the same time. The site is too small to do the phasing. It doesn't seem realistic to me, and I'm an architect. Committee Board 14, it doesn't seem to be listening to us. And people that present it, such as myself, were cut off. A letter from one of our board members was not read out. People were told they should not repeat points, effectively stopping people from speaking. That doesn't seem fair to the community. It feels like things are being hidden. But let's move on. When I'm going through the plans, it seems like the plans are not fully worked out. As a basic example, the corridor length is an over 80-foot dead end, doesn't comply with code. The roof plan shows an amenity space, but the elevation doesn't show the bulkhead coming up, provide access with a stair and an elevator. So their design is not 102 foot, it's more like 125 foot. Again, it's disingenuous. Plans are being shown to the community, things are being stated that this is only 102 foot, and it isn't. It's not true. When I have presented to community boards before, as an architect, we show the reality of what the actual building is. And this is unfortunate. The community board is just not listening and not paying attention. Also, this is an R6A. There's a very, very small triangle that's an R7A. It adds nothing to the site. It adds no actual area. So, this is a 75-foot height limit with qualifying retail. But we are an R7A, it's 417th Street. And we're unlikely to grow in height. That's just not possible. So when I hear you're only going from 95 foot to 102 foot, it doesn't really seem accurate. It's not telling the true picture of the community. We're really going from 70 foot as a standard building in which you could have affordable housing to 102 foot plus the bulkhead. But, when we looked at this and we drew the plan out, we looked at the plan, and I noticed on the EAS of sheet 81 or 132, they haven't drawn our building correctly. And even in the portion that they have drawn correctly, they only show 40 foot from our building to their building. Now, 40 foot window to window is not legal. It's 60 foot window to window is legal, 50 foot window to wall, 40 foot wall to wall. So it's inaccurate. In addition, it's on the lot line. These are lot line windows. These would make the windows extremely small and not very well lit apartments. So, the question that I really have is, this is a speculative design. I get it. It's early. Client doesn't want to spend too much money, but it doesn't work. So where does the bulk get actually moved in the design? And by the bulk, I mean, this is a 9-story building that's only 40 foot away from ours or less because our building sticks out. Where does that get moved? Does the building actually get higher? Because if you upzone and you say you can go to 115 foot, the building is going to get higher, right? It's going to get higher to 115 foot plus the bulkhead. And, it's frustrating to not be able to share the screen because we've done shadow studies. We've looked at the massing, we've modeled it, but we don't have the ability to show it. And, how is the community be made aware of what this actually looks like? So one of the things that's been mentioned also is solar panels. And we've heard a sort of a semi-commitment here, but we are actually trying to put solar panels on our roof. We're trying to sign a lease for our residents, and our residents have been in the community for 30 years. As an example, I know there's new people moving in, but we put in a ramp in our building to allow better access to our building, to bring the new people that have babies and the older people that are in wheelchairs together. We really care about our community. We're putting solar panels on our building in order to, look at reduce the cost of bills to our residents. And so to me, it seems like there's a bit of a conflict here. If we did a roof replacement under the local law, a DOB would say to us, you must do green roof or solar panels, etc. Right? Now, we would be required to do that. We're required to do solar panels, and yet there's a potential upzoning that would cover our solar panels. So there's a conflict in the laws that seem to be happening that seems to really affect our community. And so all I want to say is, whatever you do this development, we would really like to see a real design with the bulk moved away from overshadowing our building. The stair and the tower should be moved. We don't think that you need to go quite as high as you do. That's going to block the sun. The 20 foot for the retail seems very high, when 15 foot 6 would be standard for a switchback stair. So that takes off 4 foot 6. The 10 foot floor to floor doesn't seem right when you can do it 9 foot 8. That takes off another 4 inches per floor. The whole building could be reduced, is my point. You could do bulkheads that could be glazed. So, the elevator could be an MRL, which is a machine roomless elevator instead of a traction. So the whole building height could just be reduced with some basic, considerations. And so we would hope that the borough president and, everyone would really take that into account when they're looking at this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we moving forward with the next speaker?
Please, We had, has Kentucky, looks like they've been there for a while. Let's see. Parkus, Kentucky Parkus. Just please unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear?
Yes.
Thank you. I can't turn my camera on. My sister is a long-term resident right around the corner. I've attended many events there. I'm calling on behalf of her. I think this is inappropriate. It is an environmental disaster. The things that the former speaker brought up, the architect is absolutely right on the money, especially the dead end street and the lot line, and it's going to push out so many people who have been living there for years and years and years. And this is a very poor time to be pushing something when the people can't even defend themselves and they're living on one salary. It's far too large for the neighborhood. That neighborhood is quiet. There's children on bicycles. It is completely inappropriate for that area. It's going to push the pricing up. And to echo the sentiments of the median income is only $52,000 there. So no one will be able to afford to even live in the affordable housing there. And the amount of congestion and the schools, I'm a public school teacher there, and those schools are already stressed to the max prior to COVID and overcrowded and lacking funds. And I feel that it is an absolute disaster. And I feel very upset that our borough president, who is supposed to be representing we the people, is pushing this through. And I'm really concerned as to why he is in such a hurry to start this new project. And it has certainly not been fully environmentally vetted, and it's going to be quite the disaster as far as the people who live around there. It's inappropriate. It doesn't blend with the family homes that are there. It doesn't blend with the commercial buildings that are already there, and it will destroy that neighborhood. And I really don't want to have that happen. We really don't want to have that. We do not support it. And we will remember this, Mr. Eric, Adams, when it time comes to go back to the polls. Thank you very much for your time. And please register our complete disappointment in this and say no, no, no. Thank you very much.
Okay, are we ready for the next speaker?
Yes, please.
Our next speaker in order is Kai Pedersen.
I just want to quickly note that the borough president will be on the clock for more than 4 weeks from today, so there's plenty of time for people after tonight to continue.
Hi, good evening. My name is Kai Pedersen. I'm a multi-year resident of the area, and I'm against the upzoning of 1620 Cortellia Road. I think I'd like to echo several comments made by Tim and several others that have presented previously. I think one thing that the city should take note of, as well as Borough President Eric Adams, is the applicant is not presenting a resolved project. As an architect as well, reviewing the plans, lot line windows are not accurately represented. Egress paths within the presented plans are not reflected. What you're looking at in these presentations is not a real project. There are no guarantees. What Richard Lobel, Tony's council is presenting are not guarantees. They're not written into their application. You're getting what is baseline affordability as stipulated by the city when it's mandated into zoning for key areas. This is not something that's really giving affordability. They're asking for an exceptional treatment, and they're not providing anything back to the city. They're not providing anything back to the community at large. I think the things to consider as well in terms of their application is the sort of gross misrepresentation of the project. I think the council Lobel is repeatedly referred to the adjacency of R7A and the contextualness of this, and sort of R7A allowing 95 feet in construction. That's a flat out lie, without also saying that that is only if you provide certain incentives to the city to allow that. Really the base height is only 65 feet. And actually, if you look around at the neighborhood surrounding this, it's surrounded by co-ops, it's surrounded by rental buildings, many with stabilized units. These buildings aren't going to change. It's a 65-foot max neighborhood. So that needs to be taken into account. I think the other things that Council Lobel has represented relative to the project is certain considerations. I think Alana Reynolds earlier mentioned sort of a swing in the representation of what the building's offering. Again, none of this is in writing. None of this is stipulated into the ULURP presentation. They're not pursuing the council made a reference to the clean energy code. That's fine. That's great. The city has a target for 2050 to seek carbon neutrality citywide. So I think the city, if they're looking for exceptional treatment, they should be presenting an exceptional building, looking to zone green, looking to passive house. I think if you're talking about affordability, what are the utilities going to be in this building? How can this building offer something back to the city that presents long-term affordability in terms of utilization? I think the same can be said relative to the roof. Our building is looking at photovoltaics. Are they? They are not. Their plans clearly show a rooftop amenity space. Similarly, they've mentioned green roofs to help deal with runoffs, which people have also brought up as a large concern in this area. Again, they have a rooftop terrace on their roof. They're not going to proceed with any of this. There's nothing written into their application to guarantee any of these provisions. I think the other things in terms of Tony being a good community member, if that's really the case, and if you would look holistically at his application, he can massage, work with an architect to create a massing that respects its neighbors and actually provides the minimum impact. If he's providing exceptional height, he could provide an exceptional design that limits the shadowing on the vibrant street character across the street. He could also then be mindful of the surrounding characters and making sure that he's not overshadowing all the surrounding buildings. I think if you look at applications throughout the city where they're looking to increase the height, you're seeing a much more intensive application. You're seeing commitments in writing exactly how the building will respect the surrounding character and make accommodations so that the building is not an eyesore, is doing its best to preserve the surrounding character. I think this can't go forward without the city asking the applicant to go back and write in exactly what they're guaranteeing, beyond what is sort of a baseline requirement outside of, exceptional upzoning request. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Johanna Neufeld. You can unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, hi, sorry everybody. Good evening, my name is Johanna Neufeld, and as a sixth generation Brooklynite, I'm against the upzoning of 1620 Cortelli Road. I am for the inclusion of 50% affordable and supportive housing units to the project, however. I live behind the proposed site on East 17th Street with my wife and young daughter. My grandmother grew up just a few blocks away, and my father was born on Bedford, and I moved to the apartment building 4 years ago. Recently, there have been smaller developments creeping in the area. A fancy completed project on East 17th Street in Newkirk, advertised as luxury condos with units selling for $500,000 to $900,000, was just completed a few months ago. It's still not full though, but it's only 6 stories tall. So I'm wondering regarding 1620 Cortelli, I'm unclear how many of the 80-something units are actually expected to be purchased or rented in this type of economy. Empty luxury apartments are not what this borough is in need of. 4th Avenue is full of those. And you can see that the buildings have been going up and very few people have been moving in, or at least have been buying them. What we do need is truly affordable housing for hardworking families and those in need of additional social supports, like the new building on Cortelliu and Ocean that was previously mentioned. I know some form of construction is going to happen and take place, but I implore those in control of the scale and the content to rethink the plans. As Tim and Kai previously said, what we've been shown is incorrect and dishonest. A luxury apartment building will add nothing positive to the community. Please consider adding 50% affordable housing to the plan, truly affordable housing, and scaling its physical size down to far less than it is now. Additionally, I would like to specifically suggest opening the 50% of the units to the city's HRA 2010E housing application system for supportive housing for New Yorkers in need. I'm a social worker in New York, and I've been working with people in need of housing for over 10 years, and I know that this is a critical need in the city. And so while I appreciate that this project has a small number of houses reserved, we need far, far more than that. Thank you.
Thank you. Kenya Handy Hilliard. Kenya Handy Hilliard. Okay. Ina, let's go to John Orso. If you can just unmute yourself and proceed.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you for listening and thank you for having me speak. Thank you to all my neighbors for voicing your concern. So my name is John Orlos. I've been a resident for 3 years, 400 East 17th Street, and I want to be clear that I am against the upzoning. I'm not against development. I'm not against progress, as I think a lot of my neighbors have noted. We know that change is inevitable, but I think, as Kai said, this developer is asking for an exception and has presented nothing exceptional that would warrant an exception. So I want to be clear that I'm imploring Borough President Eric Adams to listen to the community, because you can't see the chat, but the chat is, I would say it's we're up to 25 messages a minute of people just voicing and seconding what our neighbors are saying with their concerns about this upzoning. And I just want to also underscore that this, what is the barometer for which we're going to allow an exception like this to get passed? 10 years ago, there was a comprehensive zoning plan that was pushed through, and now we're breaking exceptions, and it's clearly documented that the plans are half baked. Why are we giving an exception to one developer who just wants to profit from this? And I want to go back to some of the points that that gentleman spoke up in support of this, saying that upzoning is the only way for affordable housing to be put through. That's not true. You can put affordable housing in any building with any height, especially at the zoning that it is now. He's just using this as a way to push through and get what he wants, which is this upzoned district. So I just want to be clear that that is the case. And furthermore, if we are to grant this upzoning exception, we need to be much more explicit in what we're demanding as a community for upzoning, to the points that Joanna and to the points that Kai and the points that Tim and everyone else who have spoken about, the fact that this just falls short. One of the other points that gentleman made was that these new units will help provide young families to get into the area instead of pushing them out. That's simply not true with the way that it's built out. The affordable housing units are left for studios and 1-bedrooms. We know that the real need for affordable housing are for larger apartments for families. He made a claim that this will help with business activity. Cortelliu is already a thriving thoroughfare, and furthermore, this construction, who knows how long it will go on, and it will smother activity, and not to mention close down and lose. And lastly, he made this threat that somehow by not approving this upzoning means that it's doomed, that this is going to another developer because it's going to be sent to someone else who's not from the community. I just think it's quite remarkable that we're being held to this, that there's this double standard, that on the one hand, Tony and the development plan is somehow this voice of the community, and if we don't do what he says, it'll go to someone who's not from the community, when it's clear that there's plenty of valid community opposition to this. So again, I just want to reiterate to Eric Adams that there's fundamental disgruntled and disappointment in this plan. It is not sufficient. It is not exceptional enough for this exception to be pushed through. We're expecting pressure from Eric Adams to go to Matthew Eugene and the city council to push back against this, and for it to go back to the community board, which quite frankly in the dark of night pushed this through without full community support. So I mean, with that, I just want to reiterate, like, we need to work as a community at this point. And I don't understand how the benefits in any scheme outweigh the cons in this scenario. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So we'll go back. Kenya, Andy Hilliard. Kenya, Andy Hilliard. If you're there, you can unmute. Okay, I see you. Can you just unmute and proceed? You need to unmute.
Okay. Oh, how's that? That works? Awesome. We're here. Okay, good evening. I want to thank the Borough President for allowing us the opportunity to speak on this issue. My name is Kenya Handy Hilliard, and as someone who grew up and lives in communities like Ditmas Park, I'm getting tired of such top-down city processes that bypass the collective will of the community to change the topography and character of our neighborhoods for profit. Developments like 1620 Cortellia Road set the precedent not only in the immediate community, but also historic districts. We should be expanding these districts, not smothering them by surrounding developments. We should be working to maintain the proverbial Brooklyn neighborhood feel and preserving the history and culture of our communities for posterity. These seemingly capricious spot rezonings take place without our permission and with very little recourse or lasting benefit to the affected communities. The proposed structure, which would change the scale and character of the neighborhood, has been planned behind closed doors, leaving us to rely on this unbalanced process called ULURP. It's based in the illusion of inclusion. The reality is that we are relying on the benevolence of our city council members and not the will of our communities, who are highly capable to join these negotiations to make the deals in their best interest. The offer of the 25% of affordable units priced at a projected 60 to 40% of AMI is meager and predictable. The emphasis on the bulk of the units being studio to one bedrooms means this is profit driven and not community driven. If there's going to be affordable housing, it must be for families and for those who live in the area, people we know who will stay in the community and are going to invest in it for the long term. The need to change the 2009 Flatbush rezoning aimed to protect the characteristics of Ditmas Park without a larger infrastructure investment plan from the city to protect the future of the surrounding communities is a missed opportunity. So it begs the question, why would we sacrifice our skyline, our sunlight, and the culture of our communities for peanuts? Why would we consent to housing or larger supermarket with no guarantee that the community would benefit from them? We have the right to demand that our elected officials look out for our issues and put people over profits. We are not opposed to all development, just development that takes place without the community being a true partner in its negotiations. However, in light of this, we need to be assured that any development undertaken at 1620 Cortellia Road reconciles the concerns of the residents of Ditmas Park about long-term sustainability and real deep affordability. Anything short of it needs to be denied. I would be remiss if I didn't call attention to the need for large-scale ULURP zoning and MIH reforms. This is yet another example of how the current laws do not adequately address and protect communities from the overdevelopment that is happening around the city. Mr. Borough President and hopefully Council Member Eugene should strongly oppose this upzoning until these reforms are in place or until this project meets community standards. In addition, I hope that the Council Member actively works with the City Council ULURP Committee to oppose it too. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Tanya, can I just remind everyone, if they want to speak, to make their chat request, but not a chat to everyone. If they could just chat to the panelists, if they wish to speak. It gets a little confusing if they chat to everyone.
Okay, thank you. Is Gigi Smart still on? G Smart? Okay, if you can
Can
just
you hear me?
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So I wanted to kind of echo a lot of the sentiments from my neighbors, just that we feel that there is a severe lack in community outreach and transparency within the community to truly understand what our needs are. I know I myself facilitate a community group of about 900 members, and there I have witnessed many comments of neighbors also expressing their displeasure in this. I would also say there was a lot of statements made by the representative, I guess, for the developer about adequate transportation, etc., which is absolutely not the case, and makes me think that there was not adequate time and an exploration done to make sure that, again, that we have this infrastructure to support this building, which we do not. As it stands, that is, they talk about that being like a larger block. That is the only block, if I'm not mistaken, of that length on Cortellu Road. And so that's the only real break in traffic that we have when we're walking down those blocks. There are several schools within the neighborhood, several playgrounds, a tot lot, which is being restructured right now. And so even when the project would be completed, I would have concerns about the traffic flow, but especially during the construction. I'm sure many of the neighbors on this call can remember when we had our sidewalks redone, and it affects the bus route on that strip. It also just affects the flow of traffic for a tremendous amount of families. I would say, as my neighbors stated as well, they talk about this providing affordable housing for families. However, with studio and one-bedroom size apartments, that really does not provide any type of adequate housing for families. I previously lived in this neighborhood. I actually moved to Prospect Leprous Garden and moved back here because I was displaced in that neighborhood. Because a lot of these type of developments were coming up in the neighborhood. And oftentimes these developers have sufficient funding to sit on these oftentimes empty luxury apartments that wind up being put in place because the affordability is not there. We've gone through, a serious financial impact with coronavirus where people are losing their homes now. I can't imagine who could afford to enter these homes, even at the affordable level that they often say that doesn't fit within the market. So if it's not abundantly clear, I'm opposed to the upzoning. And I'm also just very concerned that for someone who's being touted as this active community member and person who is on the Cortellu Merchants, etc., that Tony or whatever his name is that operates Key Food would be so gung-ho to do these things without, getting the proper support from the community that supports his establishment. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Gabrielle Alter, followed by Harry, is it Bubbins or Boobins? If you can be ready to speak next, after Gabrielle Alter.
Okay, hello. Is there a way to turn on my video? Hello?
You have to do it on your end.
I don't see any video icon. Let's see. Yeah, it doesn't appear, so. All right. Hi, good evening. I want to thank President Adams for the opportunity to speak. My name is Gabriel Alter. I'm a board member at 400 East 17th Street, and I'm speaking for the building and the board. I'm opposed to the upzoning. People have mentioned the various impacts on our neighborhood. And as Tim and Kai and others mentioned, the environmental assessment statement, which was offered, as well as Mr. Lobel's comments this evening are fairly misleading at best. It's unclear what the neighborhood is really getting in return, other than that this will be basically a luxury apartment development. The key argument has been that in order to get the upzoning, this is the only way to allow for there to be affordable housing units, but primarily this being a luxury apartment development. So far, the numbers we've seen and heard regarding the affordable units don't come across as being particularly affordable for this neighborhood. The majority of these units will be 60 to 80% AMI for New York City, but the AMI for Ditmas Park is well below that of New York City itself by around 35%. So we don't have clarifications on the numbers, and so we can't really support this as a claim. The developers also claimed that the upzoning is necessary to include these units. There's no other way to build it, but they have not revealed their financials to the extent that anyone would be able to determine that. Why not build affordable housing within the existing zoning? Perhaps there are other developers who can propose alternate plans that could accomplish this. So far, we've only heard one plan. The financials are not clear enough to draw conclusions. We don't know the overhead or how much profit is being made. There's also been statements that Mr. Lobel has made which have contradicted previous statements around green housing. And as Kai mentioned, there's this contradiction about saying that there's going to be solar panels, but there's already been a statement said that the roof will be used for socializing. So basically, we have a lot of speculative design. It's a moving target, and we don't have clear benefit to the community. The research more research need to be done about affordable units, and furthermore, it can be done without upzoning to begin with. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is Harry Bubbins able to speak? Okay. If you can unmute yourself. Okay, you're ready.
That works great. I don't see any video icon either, by the way. I'm testifying on behalf of Respect Brooklyn, a neighborhood-based coalition. We strongly oppose the proposed upzoning of 1620 Cortelyou Road. These threats tonight that a new owner could build and get rid of the supermarket are frankly not very community-oriented. The owner of the property hired the present lobbying firm in 2016 to push this process, so it is far from early to them, and yet the renderings are half-baked and inaccurate. And tonight we heard about potential 421 tax subsidies, which are a whole other matter that have not been revealed before. I will note as of this evening that the applicant has 36 open violations on the property, some of them active for over 2 decades. Affordable housing is welcome. Out-of-touch spot upzonings like this one are not. The mayor's MIH real estate-friendly approach to creating affordable housing has failed, and it should not continue to be foisted on neighborhoods throughout the fatally flawed ULURP process. Upzonings in this mayor's administration are massive giveaways to developers that result in out-of-scale development and vastly increased amounts of luxury housing. And these pandemic upzonings from Sunset Park to Flatbush and Ditmas Park, while the mayor is going out the door, are shameful to say the least. And Mr. Adams, who is striving for citywide leadership, should say no more to these. As was mentioned, the site was part of the 2009 Flatbush rezoning. After much deliberation by the community, it was very specifically rezoned with an overall increase in allowable FAR then. Cortelyou Road from East 17th Street to Coney Island Avenue was deliberately and appropriately, for the unique nature of this eclectic strip of predominantly independent small businesses, not rezoned to R7A as part of that in-depth planning and deliberation. To simply erase all that work and consideration to gain approval for the massive upzoning is unnecessary and wrong. To be clear, as has been mentioned, nothing is stopping the owner from developing a 100% affordable housing development under the existing zoning. Instead, with this application, the developer is seeking approval for a building 87% larger than allowed. The proposed building would have an FAR of 5.6 compared to the existing FAR of 3, and up to 45 feet higher than currently allowed, maxing out to 115 feet with, yes, the rooftop party area. We believe that an even larger area at this very significant and prominent location in the neighborhood would have a very detrimental impact upon the character of the area. A new store at this location would not justify the upzoning, whose real purpose is to simply increase the size of the development and thereby increase the private profits at the expense of the community. Every applicant should be compelled to turn over all financial statements and analysis they have surely performed to see the many different scenarios before you approve this through ULURP. It's irresponsible to proceed otherwise. In addition, there are serious environmental concerns that have been inadequately addressed by the applicant. The location was a dry cleaner since 1934 and only stopped processing recently. The applicant admits the presence of 5 barrels with up to 100 gallons of potentially toxic cleaning chemicals on the site, waste dry cleaning fluids being stored in the back of the building, and the presence of a 275-gallon fuel tank. All these years of operating in the community, and yet they've not cleaned up these potential contaminants. Only a phase 1 site assessment has been done, not a phase 2 assessment, which would include such sensible testing and analysis, which the community deserves and which should not be evaded. In conclusion, what we need is community planning, not spot zonings like this one that benefit real estate interests and lobbyists. We continue to petition for landmark and historic district protections for the area to prevent the loss of architectural and cultural character and diversity. We do not want to accelerate the overdevelopment process by allowing this massive upzoning to allow an increase in size by 87% beyond what the existing zoning would normally allow. We call upon the Borough President to reject this application.
Thank you. Eileen McGill. And before Eileen speaks, David, can you help with the video? I'm not sure why people can't turn their video on.
So there's a number of different ways to turn your video on. Depends on, are you on a Mac? Are you on the Windows machine? Are you on a smartphone? All you have to do is tap on the screen. You have to go into configuration. And it all depends on whether or not you're using the web version or the app version. So there's about a dozen different ways to enable your video. But if you tap on the screen for most touch screens, you should be able to have access to it there. But there's too many to go into.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you, David. So Eileen, you're up next. If you can just, okay, you're unmuted.
Okay, can you hear me? Yes, okay. So I've lived in the neighborhood 20 years. We were kind of displaced. Our landlord, when we lived in Williamsburg, raised our rent overnight to my entire salary. Can you guys hear me? Okay, sorry. The neighborhood has changed drastically since we've lived here, and we've struggled very hard to stay here. U.S. News and World Report is the one that came out with the statement that we were the most diverse neighborhood in the entire country. That would not happen today. So many people have been displaced. We have the smallest amount of green space in all of Brooklyn and our community, and building a 9-story building with 88 units is only going to contribute to more crowded and congestion in the small parks that there are. My biggest concern, I have many things I can say that everyone else has said. But here's my biggest concern. I've been very active on this. We went out all weekend, spoke for 3 days to hundreds of people. Not one person is for this that I have spoken to. We are coming through a time where our federal government has not listened to us. Our community board, we came out in droves and spoke. Nobody listened to us. They said, oh, nobody wants it, but we're going to vote for it anyway. Matthew Eugene will not give us a meeting. We call, we go. We can't get a meeting. And now Eric Adams didn't show up at this meeting. And is this just going to be pushed through? Nobody's listening to us. Why does nobody care what we think? This impacts us and our lives. And everybody acts like Tony is doing the most wonderful thing. I've shopped at that store for 20 years. It's not an affordable store. It's a store. And I went to him the first day I heard about this. And you know what he said to me? You're right. It's wrong. I won't do it. He's doing this for money. There's nothing benevolent. They're putting a few little affordable pieces. And what's going to happen is The zoning will be changed forever. You break zoning, you break zoning. Zoning is no longer. Then all of Cortellia Road will become 9-story buildings. Everyone will be displaced. It will be a high market thoroughfare. And that's not what I moved here for. And nobody on this call wants that. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Elstein. Followed by Mr. Joshua Pierre.
All right. Hello, everybody. Can all of the panelists please turn their cameras on? I think this is really disrespectful, especially Richard Lobel, who's probably charging his client right now for being present for the whole meeting. I'd like to speak with you, Mr. Lobel. Where are you? It's 8:01. Did you check out of the meeting? Mr. Lobel, thank you. All right, thank you very much. Yeah, I can begin now because now I know that all the panelists are present. It is a dimension as vast as greed and as timeless as corruption. It is the middle ground between development and climate destruction, between social science and annihilation. And it lies between the pit of man's needs and the backside of his ignorance. This is the dimension of our reality. It is an area which we call the Twilight Up Zone. Please, President Adams, don't let them destroy my neighborhood. That is all.
Thank you, Mr. Pierre, Joshua Pierre. You can unmute.
Yes, okay, I can unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you for having me. And I want to thank the community members like Alana who reached out to encourage other people to participate. My name is Josh Pierre. I'm a former director at the New York City Comptroller's Office, and I've worked in affordable housing for a number of years, investing pension money into affordable housing throughout the city. And so it's something that I do have a familiarity with, and full disclosure, I'm also a candidate for city council. One of the things that struck me about the meeting this evening is the fact that so many people who have spoken up in opposition, the majority of which are in opposition, have stated that their voices were not heard. So I think that that alone speaks to the fact that there's a part of our process that's not functioning if that many residents can come out and say they oppose it and they weren't given an opportunity to really fully express themselves. So that doesn't really reflect on us well as leaders in the community and our current process. I also want to say that it was talked about that there would be a supermarket that would be affordable and there'd be community space, et cetera. And as Mr. Lobel stated in his own words, these are the things that are intended. Having worked on a number of affordable housing negotiations myself, I can tell you that those intentions do not always materialize, and it's not a commitment, it's not a binding commitment in any way, shape, or form. The other thing that is this idea that upzoning will help preserve affordable housing. That there is that possibility, but also understand this. Once you've upzoned the property, you can't go back. What upzoning does ensure, the only thing it does ensure is that you can build bigger. And once you upzoned it, have that property upzoned, it does accumulate, it instantly goes up in value. And the person who currently owns it can now say to themselves, well, why go through all the trouble of redeveloping it, having to put in a store and all this community space, et cetera, if I could just now that it's worth an additional $1-2 million or whatever it is, I can just sell it to another developer and not have the hassle. Once that's done, there's no firm, these commitments or these well-intended things are not tied to the property. So the next developer that comes along, it could be the person's cousin, can do whatever they want, essentially. So they can, while we are saying that We do need more affordable housing, and we really do need as much affordable housing as possible in the Dimmers Park, Flatbush area. It's really a paltry amount. The other thing I want to mention is the domino effect and the various stages of gentrification. There will absolutely be a domino effect. I've observed it in Williamsburg. I've observed it in Prospect Heights. Once that building is, look at the design of that building. You've seen that type of design before. It's usually the first one that comes up, but it's followed by another, like a slew of other buildings similar to it. And this rezoning is being done in such a way that you can tell that it's not just intended to spot zone one parcel, but you can tell that down the line there'll be a number of other parcels. Cortelli Road is ripe for the picking. The demographics have changed and they'll continue to change. But when you look at the various stages of gentrification, it's not the exact same demographic that was there 30 years ago, 20 years ago, or even 10 years ago. But it has reached a stage where people do want to live there. It's been in the New York Times and various periodicals, and it's gained in popularity. And so I can see how building that property would, encourage other people to come in, and it becomes it becomes actually less affordable for those who have just moved into it. And a lot of those same people that have moved into it are people that have had to leave Crown Heights, Prospect Heights, Williamsburg, and Prospect Lefferts Gardens. So it's just the same group of people being herded further down train stops. And finally, I would encourage the current council member to attend these meetings and hear from the community, because by the time it gets to the city council, there's less and less community participation. So I'm opposed to this. I think the best thing to do in this particular instance is to take this plan off the table, go back, have them present something that is actually more valuable to the community. And in exchange, then the community can consider, well, if you're really doing something that really is in the interest of the community, maybe then we'll give more consideration to the idea of you getting additional zoning. Because at the end of the day, additional zoning is something that belongs to the community, not something to be given away for somebody else's profit motive. Thank you for having me.
Ina, Tanya's having a moment of technical difficulty. If you could look for the next speaker.
Yes. Could we please hear from Elizabeth Reeser Murphy?
Hi, yes. Thank you for having me. I am a resident. I live on East 16th Street, right behind this proposed project. And I would like to join my other community members in opposition to the upzoning. I think, the other community members have spoken and it's late, but I just want to say that I am really opposed to this project. There's no reason for the upzoning. If if the owner of the property would like to create a project with affordable housing, he can do that within the zone that already exists. Put the laundromat out of which many community members depend on. And I'll also say that I haven't heard, the plan seems to be to have the building entrance as a parking garage put in on East 16th Street. East 16th Street is very congested as is. We often have multiple cars double parked, and it's difficult for the fire department to get through our street. So I have a lot of concern about the impact on our community. In addition to what other people have said, the subway systems and the buses are overcrowded. This just is not going to help our community. And it's clear that our community has come together and we are very much opposed to this project. And we really hope that our voices will be heard finally. And I'd also like to note as well that I think it's terrible that this is being pushed through during a pandemic. I have health issues which don't allow me to, go outside and organize the way I want to right now. And so I feel like my voice is being silenced in a way. Activism is being silenced in a way because this is being pushed through during a pandemic, and it's really irresponsible. Thank you.
David Lehman.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for the chance to speak about this. I live on East 17th Street, and this project is right around the corner for me. I am strongly opposed to the upzoning and the building itself and the development. I think, at a quick look at the rendering makes it clear that this is far from being what it could be and being what it needs to be to add anything to our street, to add anything to Cortelyou. I'm sure Tony is a nice guy, but it's very clear that this is a developer just trying to make a buck and not really considerate of the needs that this community has. And I think it's very clear that this project was slipped in during COVID, during the pandemic. It was a strategy that I hope doesn't work. The biggest problem that I have with the building is its size. I'm not against development. I'm pro-development, but this development will forever change the character of this neighborhood. And it's worth noting that it takes decades to build character in a neighborhood, but in a short time, that character could be destroyed. I think it's fragile, especially in Brooklyn. So Eric Adams, I hope you hear our complaints and take us seriously. And I hope this conversation continues. Thank you.
I'm not sure if Tanya's having difficulties, Ina, if you want to call the next speaker.
Yes, could we please hear from Stephanie B? Or Stefan B? I apologize if I mispronounce your name.
It looks like his audio's not. Oh, there he is.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I know Google Meet and I know Zoom, but that's a little newer for me. So one more down. Hi, I'm Stefan. I'm a resident at 400 Argyle Road. I've heard about this situation literally like 20 minutes ago, so I don't really know much about it and what's going on. And that's why I'm participating to learn more about this. My husband said that it's not new to him, that he's heard about this project for a while. But I'd like to understand a little better what, first of all, I heard is the key food owner is attempting to zone the property, which I don't really understand why that person has that kind of power. That's one. And two, I'd like to understand a little bit what part of Cortelli Road and extension are going to be affected by this and what it actually means. Thank you.
Yeah, this is not a question and answer. It's a statement period tonight. You could certainly reach out to our office or the applicant for clarity at another time.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we have other requests to speak. Emma Meyerson, if you're available.
Emma's unmuted. I think she's having issues.
Ina, are you looking for the next speaker?
Slide again, as there may be members of the public who are not able to log in but would like to call in using that information.
Want to call it?
Okay, so if we can show that slide at some point at this time, I have a request to speak from Blake Morris.
Hi, hello. Okay, hi, I'm Blake Morris. Can you hear me? Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay. All right, great. I'm glad I'm speaking. Yes, it's a little frustrating because I don't know why the audio. Oh, actually, here's a video button now showed up. Hold on a second. Video. All right. Oh, now the video came. Let's see. All right. Not gonna worry about that. Anyway, so this is I'm opposing the 1620 Cretolia Road project. We had a major upzone of Cretolia Road in 2009. These issues were worked out. They had a series of meetings, and now with the application of this upzoning by ULURP, we're going to have a density spread on Cretolia Road. Within 100 feet of this project is a drugstore, which is roughly the same size as the Key Food, and within 500 feet on Cretolia Road, there's a food co-op, another supermarket, which is even larger. So what we would have within if this application was approved, we would have the possibility of 3 9-story buildings being built all within 5 feet of each other. At the same time, you have the Cretolia Road subway station on the Brighton line, which has the Q train local stop. That platform is an extremely narrow platform, and during rush hour, during morning rush hour service, it is completely filled. It's completely packed. And in the afternoon rush hour, there is only standees on the platform as they exit the train. And the headways on the Q train during rush hour are 2.5 minutes. So we would not even be able to run any more service on the Q line. So what you're doing is you're creating a level of density where the infrastructure cannot support it. The platforms on Cretolia Road can't be widened. They can't be lengthened. It's in an open cut, and it's built underneath already. It's already built into the ground. So this is a recipe for actually getting people killed. I mean, besides all the other quality of life issues that the other speakers have talked about, you actually have a direct life-threatening problem here of actually granting this ULURP application. Thank you for hearing me.
Could we please call Trizan Fong next?
How was that? So that's enough.
Can we mute Blake Morris, please?
What?
Mr. Morris, can you mute
Yes.
yourself, please? Okay. Trizan Fong, please. Okay. If not, can we go to Eugene Chacha? No. Okay. I see you. Okay, I see
Hi,
you.
everyone.
Okay.
Uh, Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. Can you hear me? Yes. So thank you all for the opportunity to speak. I want to echo other members of the community in voicing my opposition to this development. I think as what's been stated multiple times is that the developer here, the petitioner, is really seeking something exceptional without offering much to the community. And I don't think that this plan, as it stands now, which is very speculative, doesn't merit that. I think that as some others have talked about, other developments have offered more to the community, and perhaps that's a way of getting this upzoning, which I'm opposed to. I think that here, the most important thing is all of these promises that the petitioner and his counsel are offering. Again, they're not written in the ULURP process. There's nothing legal that's going to legally bind them to this. And I think that I respectfully request the Borough President's office to do a real cost-benefit analysis, which is something that the community board wasn't able to do because this was all very hastily pushed onto us, taking advantage of the pandemic. I will note that the environmental assessment and all associated documents were only posted to the city, to the appropriate website from the city at the end of March. And then obviously the COVID pandemic happened, and understandably members of the community were focused on other things like their health and getting by during that time of uncertainty. Lastly, I want to make a point about the stewardship of Tony Dola. His counselor has been making the point that he's a very valued community member. I would argue that that's not true. I think a valued member of the community would be somebody that would seek more community input, somebody that would actually make concessions and have input onto the building. And also, I don't know if we can trust the stewardship of this petitioner. This project, once the ULURP process has gone through and they've granted any approvals for the upzoning, it could easily be sold. His council has continued to make many misrepresentations, such as the fact that they'll have a key food, but I don't believe a key food can be maintained while there's construction for 2 years and a garage is being excavated. There's also the question, with over 35 violations on the site existing, some related to construction, some related to boilers, how can you trust that there will be an appropriate level of construction that'll take place over 2 years? How can those chemicals that are in the back of the laundromat be disposed of properly? I think that this is a really bad idea for the upzoning, and I think more community input is needed and a really rigorous analysis of the costs and benefits. And I think as it stands, this is purely a speculative plan. There needs to be more input, and this upzoning is not appropriate for the community. And it's going to really change the character of Cortelli Road, which is like a little main street with a lot of shops and a great sense of community. And this is going to set a very dangerous precedent for our neighborhood, and it's going to really negatively impact people. So thank you very much for the opportunity. And again, I'm opposed to this upzoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Carolyn Manastra available to speak? Carolyn Manastra. Okay, so we're ready for you. Carolyn? Okay. Okay, just unmute. I see you, but okay.
Okay, now it did. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I moved here about 15 years ago when I was displaced from Carroll Gardens when the development started getting out of hand and I could not afford to stay in a neighborhood I loved. This felt like a very welcome community. I like the fact that this was actually more diverse than Carroll Gardens had been, but I feel like it's changed so much, and in some ways much, for the better. I like the fact that there's more restaurants, that there's a community health center. There's some really great things about this place. But if we let this opportunity happen, or this disaster happen with this building, I think the neighborhood will change for the worse, and people I'll get priced out. Many other people will get priced out who've been here probably much, much longer than me. It's very ill-conceived. It doesn't seem like the building plans are complete. I don't trust the developer to be doing what he says he will do. And I think that this needs much more review before anything along these lines could happen. I'm not a parent, but I really feel for the parents that I've been listening to speak about the overcrowding in the schools. I can speak to the overcrowding of the subway platform and the fact that I don't feel safe on it, as crowded as it is right now. So I really hope that before a building of this size and this scale, with very little opportunity to provide more affordable housing would go through, that our voices could be heard. So that's all I have to say. I think so many people have said it already and much better before me. Thank you for listening.
You're welcome. Trizon Fong.
It looks like she's having technical issues. I can't make her a panelist, and I unmute her, and you can't hear her audio.
Okay. Is there anyone else? I mean, I went through my list. I'm not sure if Ina has anyone. Just looking. Who would like to speak? Let's see.
Just reminding people, we're looking for final speakers before we move on to the next item.
Okay. Kathleen Brennan.
Hello, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I don't know, my fellow community members spoke a great deal about all the problems with this development and strongly opposed to it. The neighborhood would be devastated by the loss of the key food and the supermarket, the key food and the laundromat for an extended period of time. The development as proposed is wildly out of character for the neighborhood. It's disingenuous to say that it's in line with other buildings. All of the other buildings on Cortellia Road are not even close to that height. It would be wildly out of line. And the neighborhood simply does not have the infrastructure, the transit, the sanitation, the school, anything to sustain this level of development. It's wildly inappropriate for the neighborhood. And I would like to express my sincerest outrage at the community board and their refusal to listen to the community and to the disregard that Matthew Eugene's office has shown to his constituents who've been trying to get him to pay attention to this. I sincerely hope that President Adams is more willing to do the role, to do his job and to listen to the community that he represents. Because we've been abandoned by both the community board and by Matthew Eugene.
Thank you, Ms. Brennan. Is Whitney Kane? Would you still like to speak? Okay, if you can unmute. Okay.
Hello?
Yes, please proceed.
Thank you for having this meeting. Thank you to Eric Adams. And thank you to my community who has put together all this information. I've gone to two meetings previous to this to learn about this and to know that this was already in the works for years and we're not really getting the information to the community. you know, again, somebody mentioned about the process. I think the process is flawed. My notes here is that, just to let you guys know, I am a real estate salesperson. I previously, before moving to Flatbush/Ditmas Park on Cortelyou Road, I lived in Fort Greene and saw over the 10 years that I lived there, what is going on these parts of Brooklyn happened there first. So I completely oppose these upzoning of this project, and I second most of what all of my community have voiced this evening. What I shared with them on another meeting is that in another community board that I attended their meeting, developer to come in without giving 50% affordable housing. So I too back the other person who said 50%. I am someone who loves architecture. And when you see neighborhoods that have architecture that are a similar style, it gives a neighborhood some kind of character. And so I do miss that when people put buildings up, that they don't keep in mind that where they're building their buildings. Even if you're going to build large, which I don't back in this particular project, but in other places where they build large, I would love to have seen architects build buildings that go along with the community instead of starkly stand out. Let me see what else I have in my notes. But yeah, I've lived on Cortelyou Road for 18 years. And so I would like the character of the neighborhood to be conserved as best as it can be. And though I want to state that I'm not against development, but I'm against, just development that would cause disruption amongst that community. So go back to the drawing board and give the community something that they would be willing to work with. So a lower building, something with architecture that blends in, 50% affordable housing. And though we need parking spaces, I doubt that they could get to excavate to that depth with keeping the commercial businesses in operation. And with that, I'll turn the meeting back over to you guys. Thank you very much for hearing me.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. See if there's anyone else that would like to speak. You can put it in the chat before we close this calendar item.
I believe we had a Blake Morris who was waiting to speak.
Okay, I thought Blake spoke already. Okay, but okay, Blake Morris. If you can unmute.
Yes, this is Blake Morris. I already spoke already.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Okay, thank you. Cecilia Cortez. Followed by Stephen Herman. Okay, Cecilia, I see you, but I can't hear you. Okay. I can't hear you. Is your volume?
Cecilia, you may not have connected your audio yet.
Okay, because I don't see her muted.
So if there's a problem with that computer setup, if we could get Celia a phone number to call in, we could go to the next speaker and come back to Celia with the phone number.
So Stephen Herman. Stephen Herman.
I unmuted him, but he seems to be having technical issues.
Okay, I saw a Danessa?
Yeah, and the same thing, the phone number for the last speaker, if we could get a phone number to the last speaker so they could try to comment.
Danessa? Okay. Ina, do you see anyone else?
Yes. We had Cecilia Cortez, Danessa Santana, and Stephen Herman.
The three of them are having technical issues. We tried them.
So can we put the phone number in the chat? Someone is asking. Can we just put that number in the chat now, please?
And while we're waiting to see about the callers, just remind people that tonight's hearing recording will be posted early into next week. Again, the Borough President still has about 4+ weeks to consider this matter. So if people want to submit emails to Ask Eric at brooklynbp.nyc.gov, watch the video first and then submit comments. That's appreciated. And so for those speakers who had technical problems with their computers, if they could call the audio conference number now, and we could take them before we move on. We still have 2 more items that we're waiting to get to.
The phone number is 408-418-9388. Again, that number is 408-418-9388. The code is 173-716-4553. Again, that's 173-716-4553.
Stephen Herman, did you want to try again?
We have 5 on the line. I'm going to unmute all 5 if you need to speak. If you could just state your name first.
Hello. Hi, this is Suzanne. Sorry, I was having issues before, but I just wanted to say that I am opposed. My husband and I are both opposed to the upzoning. We lived here. We've lived on East 17th Street for about 10 years. We've been on this call since the very beginning. We've heard some very good arguments, pretty much all arguments available against the upzoning. I personally have not heard any single one that is a positive that would actually benefit the community. All the arguments have pretty much been said, but the one thing I want to note is really the traffic for the train and the train stop and just the congestion that's already present there. It is a major safety hazard. I take the train every morning before COVID hit, and it's just way overcrowded. But I think at the end of the day, this is really just a business decision for the developer, Tony. I don't remember his last name, but this is a pure business decision, and the profit is that he's going to be making is, you know, I don't blame him being a business person. That's what he's there for. And at the end of the day, everyone's trying to, you know, further their lives. But, you know, the people of the community are speaking on this message board, and clearly by the number of people who have spoken up tonight, Mr. Adams, it's really in his hands, and just wanting the people to be voting for him when it comes time. I mean, I think the number of people that have shown up today are going to be out there when it comes time to vote and show their displeasure if this goes through. And that's all. Thank you for your time.
Hello. Hi, my name is Emma Meyerson. I've lived in this neighborhood since I was 3 years old, and I would like to state on the record my opposition to this project. I would like to reiterate the point that there has been no argument presented for upzoning that addresses why this development has to be upzoned in order to benefit the community. I just want to know why this development can't be built within the current limits and include in affordable housing. The two things just aren't mutually exclusive, and the narrative that upzoning is necessary to create affordable housing feels transparently disingenuous. The idea that this project has to decrease the quality of life for existing residents in order to make room for only 20 units of affordable housing is simply not a good faith argument. I'm also concerned about gentrification. I am concerned that if the rest of the building is priced at luxury prices, it will drive up housing prices in the rest of the neighborhood, and I will not be able to afford to live in the neighborhood that I grew up in. That's all I'm going to say. To respect everyone else's time, thank you for letting me speak. Have a nice night.
Hi, can you hear me? I am Cecilia Cortez. Hello?
Hello? We hear you.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I am Cecilia Cortez. Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak. Thank you for having. I'm a resident of Dimas Park West. I have lived in this neighborhood for 30 years. I oppose this project, the upzoning of the Cortelio Road, because it's really going to bring much more traffic. It's going to change the life of the community, and many things have been said already tonight that I cannot repeat it. But one of the things that we have is that we have a historical neighborhood that we want to preserve, and these buildings, these high buildings, there is no space. Many people have already stated that the traffic is going, there is no parking, the traffic, the trains. Also, there is no open space for children. The small playground on Cortelio Road and Argyle is closed, and there is no space. We should be working and create more space, open space, not only for children, for teenagers, for the elderly, instead of building these big buildings that are going to even take the light in the community. We need to plan better for the community. What about everybody's talking about solar panels. The high building is going to block the light. We call upon the Borough President to reject this application because it's going to change the standard of living in our community. It's going to raise the prices of the house. It's going to create tremendous problems. The infrastructure of the community is not there. So I oppose this program, this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we got all the callers that were calling.
Okay, so one more time, Stephen Herman and Danessa Santana. After that, we're moving on to the next calendar item. Okay, Richard. You have
Okay, calendar item number 1 is closed. Again, it's still open to receive comments subsequent to tonight, but tonight that's it for speakers. And moving on to calendar item number 2. Bear with me a second. Application 200062 ZMK 200063ZRK.
This application is submitted by Borough Park Realty LLC pursuant to sections 197-C and 201 of the New York City Charter for a zoning map amendment to change the west side of 15th Avenue between 58th and 59th Street from an R5 and C2-4 district, which would be mapped to a depth of 100 feet. A zoning map amendment to eliminate the remaining 50 feet of the commercial overlay on the block, and a zoning text amendment to designate this site as a mandatory inclusionary housing MIH area. Such actions are requested to facilitate a 5-story, 15,945 square foot commercial office development at 5802 16th Avenue in Brooklyn, Community District 12. Community Board 12 has not yet taken a position on this application. Borough President Adams will hold off on making any decisions until he hears from the board. We remind viewers that if you wish to testify, you must use the WebEx chat function to indicate your intent to speak. After the presentation and question and answer portion, we will call speakers in order of the chat request. Would Richard Lobel, the representative for this application, please state your name for the record and present the application?
Hi, David Rosenberg from my firm is actually presenting on this matter. Is he able to be added as a panelist? Here we go. Thank you.
Richard, if you could just mute yourself. Richard, there. Rosenberg, you presenting? I see Mr. Rosenberg, but I don't hear Mr. Rosenberg.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I don't think you can see me, but in the meantime, we can work like this with the audio, if that's all right with staff of the Brooklyn Borough President's office.
That's fine.
All right, so my name is David Rosenberg of Sheldon Lobel PC, bringing this application on behalf of Borough Park Realty LLC for a zoning map amendment and a zoning text amendment within Community District 12 to rezone a portion. If you can move to, I'm going to try to keep this brief, to the second slide to show for to rezone the block of 16th Avenue between 58th and 59th Streets from the existing R5 and C22 zoning districts to a portion to remove the commercial overlay to be an R5 zoning district and a C44A commercial contextual commercial district. If you can jump ahead to slide 4, that shows more clearly the proposed rezoning area. Just one more ahead. And you can see the current zoning is a 150-foot deep R5 C22 residential district with a commercial overlay. The proposal would remove that commercial overlay from the back 50 feet on the mid-block and rezone the first 100 feet to a C44A contextual commercial district. If you can move to the next slide. This is a part of Borough Park that, like much of this area, has significant residential development, but also has some pockets of commercial development. 16th Avenue being one of the larger commercial corridors of Borough Park, together with 13th Avenue and 18th Avenue. Immediately across the street from the proposed rezoning area, you have a C81 commercial district, which has higher impact commercial and automotive uses. And on 60th Street, you have, and further to the southwest, you have existing M11 manufacturing commercial districts, with the caveat that we understand there is a pending zoning map amendment right around here on 60th Street to map new residential density. Moving to the next slide, you can see pictures of the rezoning area. The 66th Police Precinct is part of this block frontage. And in photo 9, you can see both the development site being the 3 buildings on the right and one more building in the rezoning area on the left. Now, skipping ahead past all the pictures, just to make this brief, you can see on slide 9 exactly how the zoning map changes. On the left, you can see the existing commercial overlay with the R5 district. And on the right, you can see where the C44A district would be and where the commercial overlay would go ahead. On slide 10, the next slide, you can see a zoning comparison table that shows that the maximum residential FAR in R5 is 1.25, with the commercial overlay having a maximum FAR of 1 FAR of commercial use, and under the proposed zoning would allow an FAR of 4 for commercial uses. Now, this proposal is being brought forward by Chartwell Pharmaceuticals, which is a Borough Park-based company with existing administrative offices and other locations in multiple places on 16th Avenue, and a large manufacturing and office facility in Congers, New York, in Rockland County. The company manufactures, packages, and does related supply chain work, including manufacturing, analytical services, running clinical trials for various generic drugs. And in recent months, in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, the manufacture of various commercial-grade disinfectants for commercial uses. The proposal here was designed because Chartwell Pharmaceuticals was looking to expand before the pandemic and is certainly looking to, and actually has expanded quite a bit during the pandemic, and is looking to centralize those jobs within Brooklyn, meaning that virtually all of their employees live in Brooklyn. Many of them commute daily now from Brooklyn to Rockland County, and they want to bring all of those jobs home. And so moving to the next slide, you can see the site plan for the proposed 5-story office building that would approximate about 16,000 square feet and would contain various offices. It would contain various offices on the administrative offices and other back-end support functions for Chartwell Pharmaceuticals manufacturing and other pharmaceutical-related work. When this project was first certified into public review, the intent was to use this space to consolidate all of approximately 150 back office employees of Chartwell Pharmaceuticals. That obviously is going to have to be reconfigured somewhat because the increase in required space per employee due to COVID. And so now the company anticipates bringing in between 50 and 75 employees into the central location, and will continue to operate some additional satellite back office space in their existing locations on 16th Avenue, while all of this, so that they can accommodate the additional space. And so just for the interest of time, I think at this point, I'm happy to take any questions from the Borough President's office.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Berg, for your presentation. So the first question, excuse me, but for the police precinct at the other corner of 16th Avenue, the west side of the neighborhood is primarily low-rise residential south 60th Street. What is the land use rationale for promoting office development at this location?
So over here, obviously, Borough Park is a large residential neighborhood that is continually growing. But first, we note that there are other commercial uses. As I noted, immediately across the street, there's a C81 commercial district that doesn't allow any residential use. 60th Street has historically been a manufacturing area that was designed to create jobs in this part of Brooklyn. But what we're trying to do with this is that with the growing population here and with larger city goals, right, these existing zoning districts here haven't been touched since 1961. And the goal is, with the larger population, is really to create new job opportunities for people where they work. The city has been slowly but surely moving away from the planning model where we rely solely on central business districts for people to get on the subway and commute into work in either Lower Manhattan or Midtown Manhattan or Long Island City or Hudson Yards, and creating more opportunities for people to work. 16th Avenue, as I mentioned, is a core commercial corridor here in the Borough Park neighborhood, along with 13th Avenue and 18th Avenue. All right, the commercial district that we're proposing may or may not and might not be appropriate on streets like 14th Avenue or 15th Avenue or 17th Avenue that really are all low to mid-rise residential and community facility. But here on 16th Avenue, we think it's appropriate. And in terms of scale, even the C44A commercial district really doesn't create the kind of high-rise buildings that would mark a major commercial corridor. We're really talking about, here as the plans show, approximately a 5-story building. And so we think that with the existing character of nearby schools, nearby community facilities, that the commercial district here is appropriate, especially in light now when the need to bring jobs closer to where people live is more important.
Thank you for that. So the size of the represented office building would not trigger parking requirements in a neighborhood where car parking is difficult and additionally challenged by the parking needs of the 66th Precinct and the Seoul Academy. What is the projected demand for street parking based on the number of anticipated employees?
Thanks for the question. And one of the great things about this not being a kind of spec office development, and this is being built by a company for its own employees, is that the applicant here knows who's going to be working in this building and, importantly, where they live and how they need to get to work. The big driver for this project is to make sure that Chartwell Pharmaceuticals can build a central office that it meets where the employees live. And so knowing where they are, it's to reduce their commute and to avoid the necessity for them to drive. And so the parking demand from employees here is negligible. Beyond that, this is an area of 16th Avenue that's very well served by transit. It is very close to the D train and to the N train. It is walkable to the F. It's a little farther, as well as bus service. And so we think that the actual parking demand, knowing the employees that are going to be working here, is minimal. And insofar as there is parking demand, this neighborhood is an area I'm very familiar with. I live not too far from it. Maybe a 10-minute drive at most. I've tried to find parking in that area. And the real driver of the parking difficulties there are driven by the larger residential character of that neighborhood, which actually has an alternating demand from what the demand comes from commercial users, which is people who are coming to work at 9 o'clock and leaving by 5, which is very different than where the real struggles that I know all too well come from. There are people who are coming home from work and need to find their parking spots. And so we think that the parking impact is going to be negligible.
So it's the President's policy to promote the use of sustainable energy. Can you talk about what your plans are for promoting practices to retain stormwater runoff, or sustainability incorporation with NYSERDA, NYPA, with blue roofs, passive house, and or DEP rain gardens.
And so I'm just looking to pull up what slide here shows the roof plan, but this is also, this proposal was put forward before the new local laws were enacted that create new requirements for new buildings to incorporate many of the same environmental recommendations that the Borough President has encouraged for a long time. But in this, on the roof plan, I think it's slide 21 in the presentation, shows the roof plan, and this is going to have to be reconfigured in light of the new requirements based on the City Council legislation. But the applicant here thinks that this rooftop can be valuable also to the employees working in the building, and thinks that particularly in the larger area where we see open space, that a green roof may very well be appropriate regardless of whether it's required. And so they're looking very seriously at putting that in, and they are also very open to looking at what other measures they can look at in connection with NYSERDA, DEP, and other agencies.
Richard?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that also the sidewalk realm is where DEP rain gardens go, so they're not on the lot itself. They're the public realm that surrounds the property. That is something you should be looking into.
Yes, I will absolutely relay that to the applicant, and I'm sure we will look at this very seriously.
And so the last question deals with maximizing good quality jobs. So what steps have you taken to ensure the inclusion of minority women in business-owned enterprises and local business enterprises in the process of construction on this site?
So the applicant here is a local business, and part of this application is really fortifying the local nature of this business and bringing their business closer to home. And they are committed, aside from the rezoning, and this is true of all of their projects, is to get as close to 100% local businesses as possible in there. And that includes, of course, minority and women business enterprises, because this is Brooklyn and minority and women businesses are local businesses. And so their commitment is to get as close to 100% as is feasible.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rosenberg. That concludes my questions. So we'll just turn it over to Ina. If you can just take people who would like to speak.
I actually do not see any speakers or anyone who hasn't indicated intent to testify on this application.
Let me just double check on my.
If you can confirm, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you hungry? I just made some pasta with lots of tomatoes.
Okay.
I think if we could read the statement again, letting people know how to testify.
Sure. We remind viewers that if you wish to testify, you must use the WebEx chat function to indicate your intent to speak. After the presentation and question and answer portion, we will call speakers in order of chat requests. I didn't see anything, but we'll check again. I don't see anything, Richard. If you can close this calendar item.
Calendar item 2 is closed. Calendar item number 3, 190-447-ZMK, 190-448-ZRK.
This application submitted by Bay Ridge Realty LLC pursuant to sections 197-C and 201 of the New York City Charter for a zoning map amendment to change the western side of Fifth Avenue between 91st Street and 92nd Streets from C8-2 to R7A, C-4, a zoning map amendment to designate the rezoning area and a mandatory inclusionary housing area. The requested actions are intended to facilitate a 9-story development with 50 dwelling units and 9,300 square feet of commercial use in Brooklyn Community District 10. Up to 30% of the building's residential floor area would be affordable pursuant to MIH. The applicant also intends to seek a waiver of the required parking. Community Board 10 has not yet taken a position on this application. Borough President Adams will hold off on making any decisions until he hears from the board. We remind viewers that if you wish to testify, you must use the WebEx chat function to indicate your intent to speak. After the presentation and question and answer portion, we will call speakers in order of chat request. Would Richard Lobel, the representative for this application, please state your name for the record and present the application?
Richard Lobel of Sheldon Lobel PC for the applicant. Good evening. So thank you again for hearing us this evening. Again, this is the 9114 Fifth Avenue rezoning within Brooklyn Community District 10. Next slide. So you can see from the circled area, the area of the proposed rezoning. And again, I'm going to proceed swiftly, and I'm happy to answer questions at the end of the presentation. The area circled is within the Bay Ridge Special District, as well as the CA2 zoning district, which has been established within this area for decades. The CA2 is actually an intensive commercial district permitting intensive commercial uses along with auto-related uses, and is particularly poorly suited for a residential area. Next slide. So the proposal would have the area of Fifth Avenue here and 92nd Street around the corner wrapped around with an R7A C24 zoning district and commercial overlay. The area that's highlighted in red is the applicant's property. It is populated by a vacant lot used for parking, as well as an additional piece used for auto sales. And so within the rezoning area right now, there's roughly 11 lots located there. Next slide. The land use map, and although it's really tiny, indicates what the uses are for those lots. In addition to the 2 lots that are owned by the applicant and are vacant or used for auto-related uses, there's roughly 9 additional lots or parts of lots. And all of these lots, with the exception of a small portion of the gas station, which really wouldn't be affected greatly by the rezoning, are all used for some form of mixed-use residential. So this rezoning is particularly useful in terms of conformance. Prior to the rezoning of these 9 lots, 0 of these lots are in conformance, as they have residential, which is not permitted in the CA2, whereas after the rezoning, all of them will be conforming lots with mixed-use residential or solely residential use. Next slide. So, David, if you just want to page through some of these pictures, these just demonstrate the layout of the surrounding area. There's the 2 vacant lots and open use lots we saw, as well as 3- and 2-story residential and residential commercial uses. So this is a copy of the zoning change map. As you can see on this frontage on Fifth Avenue, you've got the existing CA2 adjacent to the R6B, and after the rezoning, you've got this corner, which is zone R7A C24. I note that despite the R6B designation across the street, there's a public school which I think is roughly 60 to 70 feet tall, so it's a rather tall building, as are a number of the buildings in the immediate area. I think 9401 4th Avenue across 92nd Street and 4th is a 7-story building. So the proposal, which would allow for a 9-story building here, is not entirely out of context with the surrounding building type. Next slide. So the slides that follow, and again, in the interest of time, we're going to hopefully page through those, demonstrates what would be proposed at the site. This is a 9-story mixed-use building with a ground floor of roughly 9,500 square feet of commercial use and roughly 38,000 square feet of residential uses above. The total number of units that are projected are 41 units, of which roughly 12 units would be affordable housing. So as you can see just from the calculations, the unit sizes are relatively generous. Next slide. This is a site plan which just demonstrates the existing uses at the site. Again, there's the mixed-use properties at varied heights surrounding the property, as well as the proposed building, which has a one-story commercial portion that fronts on 92nd Street, a narrow street, and the 9-story residential portion with ground floor commercial at the rear would front on Fifth Avenue, a wide street. Next slide. This is the ground floor plan, again demonstrating here roughly 8,400 square feet of commercial use with a small residential lobby. Next slide. And then there's the site, the plans indicating the upper stories. As you can see, the typical layouts and square footages include studios, 1 and 2 bedrooms. Next slide. So here we have plans demonstrating the 4th through 9th floor plans. Again, a mix of studios, 1s and 2s, with larger units towards the top of the building. I think, David, if you want to just page through the next several slides, these are pictures of the building in relief, in section, and in elevation. There's setback at the 8th story with a total height of roughly 95 feet. The final plans that are included demonstrate the building in relief, looking at it from an eagle eye view. Again, you can see the rather tall school building across Fifth Avenue and other taller buildings in generally in the area. So Dave, if you want to just page through to the last slide. We have had several community board meetings with regards to the proposed rezoning with Community Board 10. Several things were noted at the community board hearings. One important note was that this site was to be occupied by a hotel. So the owner here had approved plans, which are included in the Department of Buildings website for a proposed hotel at the site. This was as of right in the current CA2 zoning district. And so there was an iterative process which went on with the community where Councilmember Justin Brannan took an active role. The community board took an active role and basically thought, rightly so, that the hotel and consequently the CA2 zoning district was really not as suited for this area as the proposed R7A district with a mixed-use residential building would be. So this has been a beneficial process on behalf of both the owner and the community board. And we were very happy at the most recent land use committee hearing of CB10 to receive a near unanimous support for the rezoning proposal. We look forward to discussing this with the full board on Monday, this coming Monday, and we're happy to answer any questions from the Borough President's office.
Thank you again, Richard. I think if you can start with giving us a breakdown on the, the income range for the based on the household size, anticipated rents, and distribution of units by bedroom size.
Right. So this is actually something which has been up for some discussion, and so it's while typically we cite to the HPD numbers for AMIs and rental unit numbers. Here, this has actually been a process where we've been in some significant conversations with Councilmember Brannan. So really what I can tell you is that of the 41 units right now, there's currently 13 that are earmarked as affordable. At varying rents and AMIs, we're currently mapping options 1 and 2 on the site, but there has been some very specific discussion, and the council member's office has taken a heightened interest even at the early stage of this discussion because they basically understand that they want to have affordability in this community. CB10 does not have many, if any, new affordable projects, but at the same time is sensitive to the developer and wanting to have a good mix of income. So I can't really give you any more specificity than to say that we're mapping options 1 and 2, and Councilmember Brannan and his office have been very thorough as far as asking us about rents and penciling out what they think would work for the community.
And just clarification, so for those who may be seeing this live or in the future as a recording. Option 1, the average rent collection would be based on 60% of area median income, with 25% of the residential floor area, where option 2, it's 30% of the residential floor area, and the rent collection would be based on 80% of area median income.
And Richard, so the next question would be on the marketing strategies in terms of the selection process and if there will be like a financial literacy campaign.
Yeah. The owner here, and I think one of the nice parts about the application is that there really has been a lot of community involvement, particularly even pre-ULURP. We were sitting down with Community Board 10 and discussing this project. So I think that while there's been a lot of interaction in that regard, the owner has justifiably been very hesitant to plow forward on many specific building designs and also building programs without knowing where ULURP was going to end up. So I think with regards to an HPD registered agent, from my discussion with Ankit, he is interested in giving preference to a local agent, to a local Brooklyn administering agent. And, you know, we would expect that they would engage in financial literacy training. But beyond that, there haven't really been any specific discussions. We look forward to engaging in them, you know, as soon as we enter into the final phase of ULURP. But again, everything's proceeded in good faith, but he hasn't really selected anyone yet. And that's kind of where he stands.
Oh, Richard, did you? I thought you wanted to say, oh, no. Okay. So the next question deals with the commercial ground floor. Has there been any consideration for, you know, any arts, local arts institutions or local businesses or retail, small businesses for that space?
I think it would, he's siding with local retail, particularly the entry on 2nd Street is a rather small site. So the way that the site lays out, the commercial is seeing as how it's low lying, leans towards a narrower street. So it would be something which would be really geared for local retail. The width of the property on that side is rather narrow. I think it's 25 feet. So the owners expressed an interest in local retail in that spot, and you know, something to complement the surrounding businesses.
Okay, so the next question deals with the, excuse me, sustainable and renewable energy. If you could just talk about any considerations for incorporating passive house design, DEP rain gardens. You know the drill.
I know the drill. Again, and we're trying to be as thorough as possible. And you know, and also in an effort to basically, I think one of the things is that the owner here is learning a little bit about the process as we're going along. But you know, we've discussed with him the importance of environmental sustainability to the Brooklyn Borough President. He understands that. We've engaged with the architect in a preliminary design, and he currently intends to seriously review sustainability measures. He specifically has discussed a green roof and solar panels. We understand, obviously, there's typically a discussion about stormwater retention. That's something he and I have not yet discussed, but we're happy to further that discussion and hope to be able to live up to the Borough President's expectation.
And of course, the last question deals with the good quality jobs. If you can talk about what steps you're taking to ensure, you know, minority and business women-owned enterprises, the inclusion.
The first thing is that the owner does intend to engage in new 421A tax abatement relief. So as part and parcel of that, he has indicated an intention, first, of course, to comply with regulations as far as the use of MWBE subcontractors, but also in terms of construction planning to make an effort to increase local hiring and MWBE participation as well. We're also, as we always do, look forward to housing local retail here, which you know, we always feel is a good thing for local hiring, So we anticipate that the close to 10,000 square feet of commercial space on the ground floor would lead to local hiring as well. But that's kind of where he is.
Thank you. That concludes our questions. Thank you so much for your patience today.
Thank you, Ms. Kent.
You're welcome. So again, we want to remind our viewers that if you wish to testify, you must use the WebEx chat function to indicate your intent to speak. After the presentation and question and answer portion, which we've done, we will call speakers in order of the chat request. So Ina, is there anyone that would like to speak?
I don't see any indication. Nobody appears to be raising their hand to speak, and nobody has typed into the chat a request to testify.
Okay, thank you. So Richard, if you can close this calendar item.
Calendar item number 3 is closed.
Okay. The hearing on these items is now closed. Thank you for participating in this remote public hearing. Borough President Adams will review the applications heard today and submit his recommendations to the City Planning Commission for further consideration. Borough President Adams would like to take this opportunity to remind you that the City Planning Commission will hold a public hearing on these items, which will be announced at a later date. Borough President Adams would also like to remind our viewers that comments can be submitted by email to askeric@brooklynbp.nyc.gov. This hearing is now adjourned. Everyone, please be safe, and thank you for participating in this hearing.
Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Enjoy your day off, and we'll talk more Thursday.
Okay.